All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second installment of the ISA Live Expo Ready, Set, Study Abroad series. We're so excited to have you all here. We have a lot of things on the schedule for you all today, starting with, information about the ISA crash course. We have a live podcast and a whole host of alumni panels so you can hear from our students. I want you all to remember to, if you haven't already, if you're just joining us, drop your information in the chat, letting us know who you are, where you're from, and maybe even where it is you're looking to go. All right, we do have some of our lovely ISA colleagues in the chat, so don't be afraid to ask those hard questions. All right. So, first up, we have the ISA crash course. Oh, sorry. First, I want to talk about our raffle entry. All right. With regard to the raffle, you all have an opportunity to enter to win a $1,000 travel voucher. In order to be entered to win, you have to first register for the event. So if you're here, you've already done that. Make sure that you have already introduced yourself and watch out for those extra opportunities to enter again into the raffle to increase your chances. If you aren't already following us on Instagram, you probably want to pop over there and follow us at ISA Abroad. All right. Follow us on Instagram at ISA Abroad. All right. So, first, we're going to have one of our lovely colleagues, Mr. Alex Halverson. He's going to talk to us about who ISA is and how to apply. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Candy. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm so happy you're here. So, I'll let you take over.
Sure thing. Are we going to play it? So, as Candy said, my name is Alex Halverson, and I am a regional director for ISA. I'm super happy that all of you are here. I've been looking at the chat, reading where everybody wants to go, and I'm really jealous. I wish I could be a student again and get all excited about study abroad. But I'm going to give a little intro here. I'm going to talk about who ISA is a little bit, talk about my experience studying abroad briefly, and then kind of just give you the rundown of some of the steps to study abroad. It kind of sounds like a lot of you are in different places in your study abroad journey, and we'll kind of walk through that process a little bit. So just to get it started off here, we're, ISA International Studies Abroad. We are a leading provider of education abroad. If you look at that map to the right, you can see that we have programs in 30 different countries all over the world. And within a lot of those countries, we have multiple different cities, multiple different universities. So we like to think that there's something out there for everybody. And on top of that, we also have a variety of different types of options for you to go abroad. So you can study abroad with us. You can do an internship. I saw some folks in the chat talk about service learning. We have amazing service learning options. We have research programs, we have Christian faith-based programs, we even have some virtual opportunities that we've kind of created as a result of COVID, so students can still get that international experience while not needing to, risk anything. So we're all happy that you're here. And again, along the lines of there being something for everyone, just because, you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't have a full time for a semester, we can offer programs as short as 2 weeks all the way up to an entire academic year. So there's a huge gap in between there. And most of us at ISA have either studied abroad, worked abroad, taught abroad. We all understand the importance of studying abroad and how crucial it is to kind of growing interpersonally. And that's why we're all really passionate, and we're here to help you get abroad to have an amazing experience. So as you can see here on the screen, these are some pictures from my time abroad. I studied abroad in Granada, Spain, which if anybody asks me where they want to study, I'm going to be biased and say that you should go to Granada. It was an amazing experience. I studied abroad for an academic year, so 2 semesters. I got 30 credits there. I was mostly going there just to improve my Spanish, which I did. And some of the things that I learned there, I gained a much better global perspective of the world, being immersed in a culture that didn't speak a language that I was accustomed to speaking on a regular basis, being in a school where I got to be with German students, Chinese students, British students, other American students. It was really an immersive experience. I made a lot of priceless relationships that I still cherish. You can see in some of these photos, there's some other American students on the top. There is my host family there. I still talk to my host sisters via various social media apps, and a little hint before you go abroad, make a lot of good friendships, because then when you decide to go back, you can stay with those folks for free, which is a nice little added bonus. I think one of the best things about studying abroad, I mean, aside from how much fun it is how attractive of a job candidate you'll be afterwards. I can't even think of a job interview that I've had where studying abroad wasn't brought up in the interview. People want to know about that. They want to know how, you can adapt to diverse cultures. Maybe you speak another language, how you've grown, how well your cultural awareness has grown. And these are a lot of things that you'll gain while going abroad. And I know that I have, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to work with ISA, because I think that, we do a really good job of helping you prepare to go abroad. And our programs are really built to foster a lot of that independence that you get and a lot of that cultural awareness. So again, we're all excited you're here, and I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit of the steps to study abroad. So we kind of have developed this into 4 different steps. I saw a lot of folks in the chat that are like, I have no idea what to do. I'm just starting off. That's totally fine. I think you're in a great spot. Some of you might know exactly where you want to go. That's great too. We've helped over 100,000 students get abroad. Again, a lot of the folks at ISA are part of that 100,000. We know, and in that time we've learned, and that's why we've created these 4 steps, just so that we can give you the step-by-step to make it simple. So step 1, start perusing, really simple. Go on our website, follow ISA on Instagram, and that'll be helpful for this live expo too. You can kind of get some inspiration. Go on our website, start debating. So there's a good number there. You can talk with our program advisors. They're kind of our first line of defense. So you can call them and talk to them, and they'll help answer a lot of those basic questions that you might have. And then also start deciding when and where you might want to go. Figure out when a good semester will go. Maybe it's summer, maybe it's spring. Maybe you want to go for an entire academic year. So check out our website, kind of start looking at all the different options that are out there. Figure out if you want to go somewhere that's warmer. Are you more comfortable with cold weather? Do you want to be by the beach? Do you want to be able to ski? Big city, large city? There's a lot of different things to consider. And I think that's the great thing about all of the program offerings that we have, is that I think there really is truly something for everyone. So if we move on to step 2, so start planning. We want you to work with a study abroad advisor. So to make sure that all the classes that you're going to take are going to count abroad, that's a really important piece. And our program advisors can give you really great expert recommendations. So you see that link there. That's a really good link where you can kind of, we can assist you with some good program options. So maybe if we could drop that link in the chat, that would be great too. And you're going to want to coordinate with your school study abroad office. This is going to be really important. You want to confirm any requirements that they might have. They might want you to do like a little study abroad 101 course with other students interested, just so you can learn a lot about these things. You'll find out about financial aid and scholarships and how that's all going to work. That's really important. ISA offers a lot of scholarships too. Don't sleep on the scholarships. They're so important. And it's a really great way to help reduce the cost of your program. And then also, you want to understand how your credits are going to be transferred. We want you to go have a great time, but we also don't want you to go abroad and come back and then feel like you're behind. That's sort of a myth with study abroad, is that if you study abroad, you're not going to be able to graduate in the time that you want. Super not true. Like I said, I studied abroad for 2 semesters and I still graduated in 4 years. As long as you get those credits to transfer back, you'll be just fine. So we'll move on to the next here. So the last part of this step 2 is pick where you want to go. So really kind of solidify what semester you want to go, what location you want to go to, and what type of abroad experience you want. Again, whether it's service learning, an internship, research, faith-based options, and we even do have some domestic options. We have some internships in the US as well. So that's kind of the last step of that step, or that last little piece of that step 2 before you move on to the next step. But also, to make it super easy for you while you're considering this, keep in mind all the things that are included in our programs. So we'll help you enroll at your host university abroad. We'll help get you set up with those courses. We'll arrange for your housing. You can choose a variety of different options. We'll meet you at the airport. We have on-site staff in every single one of our locations that are going to be there to serve as a resource and to just make sure that you feel comfortable and safe. We've got cultural activities, excursions, and so much more. And the little fun finance fact there to the right, it is often easier to use financial aid for a full semester rather than summer. So keep that in mind. I'm always an advocate for studying abroad for a longer term. If you can make it happen, it's usually generally better for the cost. And again, financial aid goes a lot further using it for the semester. So we will move into step 3 when you start preparing. And I think this is maybe the most fun step because now you're really getting excited about where you're going. You're going to want to check with your study abroad office, apply with them. You're going to want to apply with us as well. So we have a separate application that you'll go to on our website. It's really easy. You just kind of put in the exact program that you're going to be applying for. There'll be some other questions that you'll answer. And then your application, once it gets accepted, you'll get connected with one of our awesome program managers who is going to be an expert kind of in the country, in the city that you're going to be studying in, and they'll serve as a really great resource. Work with your applications and for your financial aid, grants, scholarships. We'll let you know if you need a visa, but right now is a good time to already start thinking about getting a passport if you don't already have one. The time to get it can vary. With COVID, we're hearing that it takes a little bit longer. So if you're thinking about studying, I recommend just kind of, work on your passport right now. It's a great thing to have, and they last 10 years. The visa you probably won't need unless you're traveling if you're going to be abroad for more than 90 days. So for those folks who are considering an academic year, that's something that you might need. But then one of the great things about after you apply, you get an ISA student portal. So this is where they'll have a lot of resources for you to go abroad, but then it'll be a place for you to upload some documents that we'll need to kind of get you going and on to the next steps. And then of course, flights to your new home. And that brings us to step 4, which is really, you're almost there. Start getting excited, start packing, start thinking of all the things that you might need. Like it says there, keep some room in your suitcase for souvenirs because you're definitely going to need them. I know personally I had to leave some clothes behind because I'm like, I want this souvenir and I don't need these pair of pants anymore. But right here, you're basically there. Remember, at any point in the process, like it says there, our program advisors are ready to help you. Write that number down. You can live chat us. You can go to our website at studiesabroad.com and you can live chat us at any time, and we're happy to help answer questions that way. And then if we move to the next one too, I can kind of talk about this briefly. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a regional director for ISA. There are several other folks that are regional directors, and you can kind of see this map where we're all laid out. So a lot of us, we work with specific states and specific universities. So look where your state is and kind of associate it with the person to the right, and that's going to be your regional director. So if you copy down this link that's in there, it'll bring you to this page, and all of our names are hyperlinked so that you can set up an advising session, which is a really great way to get started. We're happy to chat with you for as long as you need to kind of help clear any anxiety you might have or just answer any questions that are lingering in your mind, especially after this expo. So again, we're super happy that you're here. I'm going to hop into the chat and I'll be there to answer questions for this expo. But with that, I'm going to pass it back and we're going to get started.
One moment, Alex, before you
go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. I know that, it's a lot of information to cover in a short time, but that's why we call it a crash course. I wanted to lift up one thing that I've been noticing in the chat there. Even though you've gone over the 4 steps, I wanted to kind of get your personal take on where to start. There's some people who are still unsure about where to start. So if you want to just go ahead and tackle that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for a lot of folks, but it's tough. I know for me, when I was first starting, one of the first things that I did was I went to my study abroad office and I met with an advisor, and I just said, I know I want to study abroad. I don't really know where. I had a minor in Spanish at the time. I'm like, I think I kind of want to speak Spanish. But I think talking to somebody, talking with us, talking with your office is a great way to just get another perspective. It can be super overwhelming if you're on our website and you're looking at all these programs, but talking to somebody else who's done it, they can really help you. They can really help ask the questions that are going to narrow down what you might want to do. We can look at your major. I see a lot of different majors in the chat. You can study abroad if you're a business major, education major, psychology major. If you want to do your generals, you can go abroad. That's totally fine. And I think just figuring out, again, just focus on one thing at a time. Where do you want to go? Do you want to study for a semester? What type of courses do you want to take? And then I think take it one step at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. It can be an overwhelming process, but that's what we're here for. And that's what your study abroad office is there for. We all want you to go abroad. We've had these amazing experiences and we know how life-changing they are and we want to help you get there. So
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. All
yes.
right. Now, let's see what some of our students are doing right now as they're abroad. Awesome. So I'm so excited because for our next session, we're going to actually hear from some of our global ambassadors. And this panel will be led by the lovely Miss Jenny. All right. And we're going to talk about the application process. So for our student spill the tea session, let's introduce our panelists. Hey, everybody. All right. Jenny, I'll let you take it over.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. Like Candy said, my name is Jenny Robinson. I'm one of the other regional directors for ISA. I mostly work with states down in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, New Mexico, Tennessee. So I'm happy to see some students from my region in the chat. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I will quickly let our alumni introduce themselves just to kind of set the stage. How about, I'll start with you, Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica. I am a senior at Rowan University in New Jersey, and I studied abroad in Athens, Greece in spring 2020.
Awesome, thank you. Martina, would you like to go next?
Yes, so I'm Martina Mirbaha. I am a senior at Missouri State University, and I studied abroad in Glasgow, Scotland in fall of 2019 and Paris, France in spring of 2020.
Perfect. Emily, how about you?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily, and I'm a senior at Arizona State University, and I studied abroad in Seoul, South Korea in the fall of 2019.
Sounds like so far we've got a good mix. Ashley, what about you?
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a senior at the University of South Carolina, and I studied abroad in Madrid in spring 2020.
Awesome. And Olivia.
Yeah, hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a senior at Mount Mary University in Wisconsin, and I studied abroad in fall 2019 in Cusco, Peru.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. So we're going to run through some questions just to help all of the students that are tuning in today with questions about how to start the study abroad process, how to find a good program for them. So I'll call on a couple of you for each question. And we'll move through these. And please, everyone that has tuned in, feel free to be dropping questions for our alumni in the chat, and we will do our best to work those into the session as well. So to kick things off, how did you all pick your program? Did you start by doing your own research? Did you meet with an academic advisor? What did that process look like for you? We'll kick things off with Olivia.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to study somewhere with a lot of variety, and Peru has 3 different regions. They've got the coast, the highlands, and the jungle, which was perfect for me. So I just kind of went forward with that. I reached out to ISA, and they were able to help me like start the application, talk to my study abroad office, and just kind of piece everything together.
Awesome. Okay, so you had a pretty good idea of where you wanted to go, and then we just helped fill in the pieces.
Right.
Perfect. What about you, Martina?
Yes. So I knew I wanted to go abroad for a year, and just to feel comfortable and kind of confident with the whole experience, I was like, okay, I'm going to start somewhere English speaking. So that narrowed it down quite a bit. Found myself in Scotland, which I'd never been to before, but I wanted to go somewhere that was just completely new and just kind of throw myself into the experience, see what it was like. And then for my second term in Paris, I am a French minor, so doing a language course was understandable, and that was perfect for that and very intensive, but I learned so much. Recommend it.
Awesome. So for one, you just wanted to try something new. For the other program, you were hoping to gain some language immersion. So there's lots of different motivations that could lead us to choose a certain program. I'm just now seeing, Nicole, I think I might have skipped you. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself and then just give us a quick note about how you started your application process?
Sure. My name is Nicole. I'm a senior at Emmanuel College in Boston, Massachusetts, and I studied abroad in Meknes, Morocco during the spring of 2020. And I knew that I wanted to go somewhere that was Arabic speaking because I was taking Arabic at school. And so my options were pretty slim from there. So I decided on Morocco because I was also taking some French, so I could work on both languages at one time. And yeah, similar to Olivia, ISA just kind of filled in the gaps after that for me.
Awesome, thanks for that. So moving on into the nitty gritty, we've heard, there's different initial interests that sometimes bring us into the study abroad office or to one of our advisors here at ISA. How did the application process itself work for you guys? I know most students have to juggle two applications, one for their host university and one for us here at ISA specifically. So what did that look like for you? How did you stay organized throughout the process? And what tips do you have for students that are just now getting started? Erica, would you like to chip in to this one?
Sure. So I did have two separate applications, one for my school and then one for ISA. And then there was some other paperwork that the school in Greece needed, but that was all funneled through the ISA portal. So it wasn't like I had to go to a different website for that. I am very organized when it comes to deadlines. So I had a couple of different calendars that had everything on it. And then I would also take usually about an hour a week to kind of sit down and really look at what was coming ahead. And I would say also something that really helps with the paperwork is even though they're two separate applications, a lot of the times they're asking for the same information. And so it wasn't a matter of I have to fill out 5 billion different forms. It was just oh, I just have to copy and paste the information on this one onto that one. And that was helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Keeping all of that stuff backed up so that you can just copy paste and really consolidate the application process is a great tip. What about you, Emily? What did that look like for you and how did you stay organized?
Yeah, so I also had two separate applications, and like Erica said, a lot of it is pretty similar information. I would say that it was pretty easy to stay organized, especially with the ISA stuff, because it's all put into the one area of a student portal. So when you go into the forms and documents section, it's just all there in a row with the dates and then if it's been submitted or not. So it's pretty easy to just go through them one by one. And then I would also just put it in a calendar. And my main way of staying on top of it is that instead of waiting until it was close to the deadline, I would try to do everything or start it at least really far in advance. Because I would realize that certain things required a lot more time to be processed, or I needed to finish finding out information about one thing for the other. For example, I lived off campus, so a lot of the forms would ask where I was staying, but I needed to find where I was staying and pay my services for that first before I can fill out the form. So I just try to do everything far in advance. That way it could end up being spaced out.
It's a really good point. I know it's so easy to let the semester slip away from us. And while the application process itself can be pretty straightforward, those dates can sneak up on you. So staying on top of that, because sometimes a form that you turn in early in the application process becomes crucial later on in the application process. That's a really good point. Let's see, do you guys have any tips for how you went about picking your courses? I know that that's a big concern for a lot of students wanting to stay on track for their degree plan. So what did that process look like for you? And what tips do you have for students just now getting started? Ashley, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so for the scholarship that I had, I needed to take 5 courses. So I knew going into this, I was like, okay, like I don't want to like overload myself, but I really wanted to get the best experience possible. So I decided to take 3 courses in Spanish and then 2 in English. I took that were my business electives. And I spoke to my advisor before to make sure that like everything would be able to transfer easily and I'd be able to get the credits. So definitely speaking to my advisor was very helpful in getting that and then making sure that I had the classes offered. But I try to challenge myself by taking like an intensive grammar course in Spanish. But then I also wanted to like enjoy my time abroad and get the best out of the culture. So I got to take a class where I got to learn about Spanish artists and go to the Museo del Prado. And then I also got to take a course in contemporary theater. And so I got to actually go out and see some plays. So definitely like challenging yourself, but also trying to get the best out of the culture. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think too, one of the pieces with study abroad is we end up learning so much more outside of the classroom than just in the classes themselves. Let's see, Olivia, do you have any tips for how you went about choosing classes and getting those approved at your university?
Yeah, just like Ashley, I chose courses that would help with my major. So I'm a Spanish major. So by taking courses in Spanish, they automatically applied. And then my electives, I met with my advisor to make sure that they would transfer smoothly. So.
I would like to add something too, if that's okay.
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, I would say like, because when I went overseas, I was in my 3rd year. And I think like making sure to get the like, what's it called? Like what it'll be like transferred to us for your home university. You have to submit in a form of like what classes you'll be taking so that your university can then like compare them. And like the earlier you can do that, the better, especially if you're in like your last 2 years, because as like a senior now, some of those classes took a really long time to process. So like just now I got them like, I guess switched into like credits. So it does take a good amount of time. So like the earlier you can get that figured out, the better it will be.
Yeah, so we do that. That's a great point. We always encourage students, like if you're a freshman or even a sophomore, it's great to start looking at all that now. Talk to your academic advisor and say, at some point in college, I know I want to study abroad, and sometimes they can help you identify a good semester to go. Another tip that we give students is to save your electives and gen ed courses for the time that you want to go abroad. Those are typically the easiest to find, the easiest to get approved, and in all honesty, the workload is usually a little bit lighter so that you can enjoy a little bit more of your time abroad. So that's just coming from personal experience, something else that I would throw in there. We did also have some questions coming in for a couple of you guys specifically. For Olivia, somebody asked, what did you study in Cusco? I think you touched on Spanish a little bit. And they're asking about the altitude change, if that was something difficult that you had to deal with.
Yeah, so I took 4 classes. I did culture for language learners. I did Latin American Lit, so like a survey of it, and then the anthropology of the Andes and the Amazon. Those are all in Spanish. Then in English, I took sustainable development of the Andes Mountains. And honestly, I was fine with the altitude change. Like definitely the first day I was walking up the steps to my homestay and I was like out of breath, but it's also because my luggage was super heavy. But within the first couple of days, I was able to like even go for a run in the city. So like your parents will insist that you take it easy. I think I napped for like 5 hours and then I woke up and I was like, all right, I'm ready to conquer this.
Definitely experienced something similar. And we always tell students, like, be sure to stay hydrated, take it easy those first couple of days, but then you're usually good after that. As a follow-up to that question, somebody else was asking about culture shock, if you experienced any sort of culture shock during your program in Peru.
No, I mean, everyone is honestly so friendly. You can say hi to anyone on the street and they'll say hi right back. It was really nice because I felt like I was part of the culture. Like they want to get to know you and they'll tell you any story. You can sit down next to a cafe and be like, hi, my name is Olivia. Like, what are you doing here? And they'll just go into their life story.
I always find the connections we make abroad are the most memorable and priceless of the whole experience. To continue on that thread, Martina, since you went to 2 different countries, did you experience any sort of culture shock that was more in one than the other, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think it was certainly easier to go from the United States to Scotland just because you have that English as a base. You never have to worry about any like language issues. Everything you buy, you can read the labels, like you know what you're getting into for the most part. And though I have a pretty good background in French, when I would go places and be like, "Oh, I'm not exactly sure what this is," or "I'm not exactly sure what this person's trying to tell me," sometimes that would stress me out and that would kind of put me in a little bit of like a bit of stress. But of course, as you go on, the more interactions you're having, the more people you're talking to, it gets easier and easier. And by the end of it, you're like, I don't want to go back. Like, this is the new culture.
Ooh, sorry, how about Nicole, your time in Morocco, did you experience any sort of culture shock?
Yeah, I definitely did. Morocco and the United States are very, very different. And so the first couple of weeks, I definitely was feeling it. But I think that the culture is so great there and I really learned a lot. And after being there for a couple of weeks, I felt like I was pretty well adjusted. And yeah, the ISA office in Morocco was really great too at helping us to kind of learn different cultural nuances and to walk around the city and figure out, you know, different things about Moroccan culture. So ISA was also like really helpful when it came to that as well.
Awesome. And then to bring things back to the application process, can you give students just an idea of how the ISA staff helped you through that entire application process? Like when it came to turning in forms, finding classes, if you had to apply for a visa, your flights, at what points did the ISA staff help you? Erica, would you like to jump in on this one?
Sure. So we have an ISA staff member that was assigned to everybody studying abroad in the country that I was going to. And she actually reached out to me before I even finished my ISA application because I started it and then I had to walk away for a little bit. And she called me up and she's like, "Hey, do you need help with anything?" But the poor girl, I called her probably at least once a week, just with like random questions that I had about different forms. And she was always very good with helping me. If she didn't answer my question right away, she would give me a call back like within the next couple of days. But some big things that I definitely asked her about a lot were like my visa. I wasn't really sure about all the forms that I needed to get for that. And then I also had to get my visa in person. I had to go to the consulate for that. So she helped me out a lot with that. And then just like other little things on forms.
Yeah, perfect. And we always tell students, like, please do not hesitate to reach out to ask questions. There are no dumb questions. I had never even been out of the state before going abroad. So I really appreciated my advisor's help navigating the whole process and all of those itty bitty questions that pop up along the way. That's why we're here. How about we'll do one more. Ashley, do you have anything to add just as far as the application process and how ISA facilitated all of that for you?
Yeah, honestly, the same as Erica. I think I was in contact with my advisor through ISA like at least once a week or maybe even twice a week, just asking all questions. And I utilized the visa batch processing system, so I was able to get my visa through them. But I was a little bit nervous in not getting because my passport, I needed to get it renewed and everything was happening very fast. So I was in direct contact with everybody to make sure they received my paperwork. And like from the very beginning to the end, I was always in contact and everything was very helpful. So yes.
Thank you guys so much for all of these great answers. I hope that some of this gives the students in the chat some perspective to help them get started. I believe we're going to hand things back over to Candy, and we've got a couple more questions to wrap up.
Awesome. First of all, thank you all so much for sharing your insights. I always love hearing our alum stories. I have seen a few questions in the chat, and one of them I want to lift up because I think it's important since some of you all mentioned language studying. So if maybe some of you all could speak to the test, if there was a language test involved, if you could test out of a class, what it was like for you all to have to test into a class as well. All right, maybe who would like to speak on that? Nicole, I see you waving your hand.
Yeah. So when I got to Morocco, I think it was maybe the week before classes started. Well, backtracking, before we went to Morocco, we could request what language level we wanted to be placed in. So I was trying to get into Intermediate Arabic 2 because I had already taken the beginning courses and then Intermediate 1 at my home university. And then when we got to Morocco, we took a placement test, and that was for everyone who wanted to be placed into any level of Arabic. And then there was also French tests as well, because as I mentioned, there's both languages spoken there. And the test was, I thought, moderately difficult, but I thought that the professors who were facilitating the test were really helpful. So if you were stuck on something, they could help you out. And then I ended up getting placed into the level that I wanted. And the professors were really great at helping with things that maybe I hadn't learned at my home university that they expected that I learned. And the classes were really small, which was really great. So I thought that I was able to learn a lot.
Awesome. One more person. All right. Thank you, Martina. Close us out.
Yes, so I also did a language test for French, and we initially did that online at home before we even went abroad. And then that put us at like a level that they thought we would be at, and we could choose our classes from that. But then when we got to France, we did another test in person there. It was just a very short written test and then an oral test with the professors that were actually teaching the classes. And then if they thought you were at that level, then fine. And then if you could move up or down, they would do that. But really, they just want you to be at a level where you feel comfortable. There's no point trying to take a level higher than what you actually are and then struggling. So don't worry about if it's not high enough. You really want to be taking the language that's going to be at your level so you can enjoy your time there.
Thank you all so much. Sorry, someone want to say one more thing?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna add, like, just kind of like proving that point, I guess. And I noticed that some people were talking about the Korean TOPIK test for studying abroad in Korea. For me personally, I didn't need to take the TOPIK test for my classes, but I also only took one class that was in Korean, and it was a language course. So that might be different from if you want to take a class in Korean that's on a different subject. But for the intermediate class that I took, it wasn't required. But I do know that you can go to like Korean embassies, and they should be able to help you administer the tests. But I did take like the same level course that I had taken at my home institution, which at first I was a little bit like frustrated about, but it actually ended up working out because at my home institution, it was Korean taught in English, but overseas, it was Korean taught in Korean. So it was a lot different and harder in that way. So it ended up working out well. So yeah, don't be afraid to take something that might be lower just to like test out the waters of it. So yeah.
Emily, I love that advice. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your perspectives. Thank you, Jenny, for facilitating. We're going to move on to our next section, but I do want to say, for those of you all in the chat, remember, these are our global ambassadors. So if you are looking to have a conversation with any one of them, you absolutely will have the opportunity to connect with them. They'll drop their information in the chat for us. All right. So now, if you're just joining us, again, thank you so much for coming to the ISA Live Expo. We are here. We're ready to answer your questions. And today we're going to have more exciting conversation coming up. So, all right. If you're just now joining, please remember, if you want to join the raffle to win the $1,000 flight voucher, there's a few things that you need to do. First, if you haven't already, make sure you register for the event. Let us know that you're here by introducing yourself in the chat, and watch out for additional raffle entry opportunities throughout the event. All right. All right, first off, now we have our first opportunity. So we're going to have some trivia questions. Again, if you have not already gone over to our Instagram, you need to follow us at ISA Abroad. And when you have the answer to the trivia question, make sure you send us a DM. DM us your answer, and the first person to get it correct, you'll get the extra opportunity to win that $1,000 flight voucher. So let's see. First question, cityscapes. Name that country. Looking at this photo, where are we? Where is this? DM your answer to ISA Abroad on Instagram for your opportunity to win. Hop on over to Instagram. Where are we? Give y'all a few minutes to go ahead and take some time. I'll go ahead and reintroduce myself because I don't think I've had the opportunity to do that yet. My name is Candace. I'm one of the regional directors with ISA. I manage the relationships in the Northeast. So everyone who is in the chat from New York, New Jersey, the New England area, I would be the person to help you on your journey to abroad. So again, if you have any questions, we do have our chat monitors, our program managers in the chat who are ready to help you through the process. All right, now let's check out a video. Awesome. So that was one of our videos highlighting one of my favorite ISA locations, Japan. But first, before we get to the next session, I want to highlight that if you are looking to go abroad with us, please know that we have a promotion going on right now for Valentine's Day. We have the Valentine's Day do-over promotion where you can apply for free, and it has been extended until today. All right, so until today, you have the option to start your application and skip the $95 application deposit. So hop on over to isa.com and take a look at the application and check out some of our programs. All right, so for our next session, oh, sorry, I want to highlight also, it is Black History Month. And so we want to lift up some of our awesome alum who have gone abroad with ISA, who had the opportunity to create their own Black history. We have here Charis, who studied abroad with us. And as you can see here in the quote, she had an awesome time traveling the world. And she's now, since she's returned home, she had the opportunity to participate in Peace Corps and has had the opportunity to leverage her experience as a professional. All right, so thank you so much, Charis. Also, I want to put a plug in. At ISA, we have different types of programs. It's not only about studying abroad. And during this time, during the pandemic, when things have changed around for us, we have to think creatively about how else we can connect with our global community. ISA has the opportunity for you all to participate in virtual learning programs. So we have our global remote internships where you can dig deeper into your passions as a professional with one of our sites around the world. We also have the career semester opportunity that allows you to connect with experts in your field as a mentor and have an opportunity to, again, delve deep into your profession and your passions. And lastly, we have our remote learning programs. This is an excellent option for those of you who are still looking to take courses abroad, but you may not be able to actually go abroad because the pandemic or whatever reason. You can hop on over to our website. They'll drop some links in the chat for that and take courses at one of our partner institutions, say in South Korea, in Costa Rica, or Italy. All right. So up next, I'm so excited because we have 3 sessions that are really going to help you all in navigating this process. First up, we have Konnichiwa from Japan. It was mentioned at the beginning of this session that ISA gives many opportunities for you to connect with the global community because we travel to over 30 different countries. And so today we want to talk a little bit about Japan. Next, we're going to dig deeper into some of those scholarship application cheat codes to help you feel confident as you apply to get the funds for your trip. And then we're going to have a live recording of the Stamp podcast with one of our partners, Charis Tucker over at the Travel Gene, and Malaika Serrano, who is the VP for our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team here at World Strides, which is our parent company. So let's get started.
Hi, my name is Crystal, and I'm the program manager for Japan at ISA. I'm excited to share with you some of my favorite travel stories today, give you a little background of how I started with ISA and my role as a program manager. A few years ago, I had a pretty standard office job, a small apartment. Most of my things were kind of rented, and I decided that I wanted to quit my job and move to Thailand to teach English. Didn't have a teaching background, not a lot of experience working with kids, but I knew that I wanted to live abroad. And so that was the best job I figured that I could get. And it was the most amazing experience, totally life-changing. And it's what inspired me to get a job working with education abroad. While I was traveling throughout Southeast Asia, I noticed that I was often the only American on a lot of tours or staying at my hostel. And I would meet people from Europe, Australia, Canada, but not too many Americans. And that inspired me to look for a job when I moved back to the US in education abroad. I think it's a completely life-changing experience to spend a significant amount of time in another country versus just going on vacation for a week or so. And so that's why I applied to ISA and luckily got hired. And now I love working with students and helping making those dreams come true. So my trip to Japan was actually 6 years ago, way before I even knew what ISA was. I went with one of my best friends who's actually has family there. And it was super cool to see a traditional Japanese home. Her grandmother is like 85 years old and doesn't have regular furniture that we think of. So when we were watching TV, we were sitting on the floor, which was really cool. And my favorite, most memorable experience was waiting for sushi for 5 hours at a fresh fish market in Tokyo. It was incredible. And I can't believe that I waited 5 hours. And I honestly, it didn't seem that long. As soon as that first piece of sushi hit my mouth, it was like I just got there. And it was so cool because the market around us was just buzzing. So we would wait in line, and then I would take off and walk through the market and then kind of switch spots with my friend. But it was an incredible experience. It's still one of my top 5 best restaurants I've ever been to. And it was so small. It was only 20 people could sit at the sushi bar, which was why the wait was so long. And so that was, I mean, Japan is just incredible for the variety of things that you can do there, from 1,000-year-old temples to super modern skyscrapers, and the newest technology, and the fashion that's there is incredible. So you really get to see, you know, everything from old world to new world modern, which is really unique, I think, for a city. And one of the things that surprised me during my trip there, as well as some of my other experiences traveling, is that you really don't need to know the language to get around. And I'm from a super small town in the Midwest, and Tokyo, 10 million plus people, and you can still get around. It's amazing how challenging it can be, but then when you overcome that challenge, it's just so exciting to know that you could navigate through a city where you don't speak the language. And that's something really to be proud of, that I think of often when I'm traveling, of like where I'm from and where I'm at now and what I can do. And that's what brings me to, you know, one of my favorite things about the program and working at ISA is being able to work with students one-on-one and helping to overcome some of those fears and challenges of going abroad for the first time. Some of my students, this was the first time getting on a plane, much less going abroad internationally. So it's very daunting, and there's a lot of forms, especially for the visa application, but I'm there to really help you step by step with each thing that needs to be done, so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming, and that it can be accomplished. So that's really what my main role is as a program manager, is to be there step by step throughout the application, any questions that you have, to talk to your parents if they're not really on board with you going abroad and they're scared of how far it is. I can be there as your advocate to help your parents feel more comfortable about you going abroad. And a typical student that goes to Japan is really focused on either Japanese language or Asian studies, because the program is pretty focused for languages or Asian studies. And so a lot of students that they go because they want to go to Japan. There's a strong passion for learning the culture and the language. So if you're interested in Japanese culture and language, this is obviously the program for you. But everybody that goes on this program, it's the same thing. They're not just there just to pick a country to go abroad. They're going to Japan for very specific reasons. So you'll have like-minded students with you on this program. So I'm really excited to have you join the program, to be working with you in the future for a semester program or next summer. Yeah, like I said, once you hit that apply button, I'll be the one that'll reach out and start working with you up until you leave for the plane. So I hope that I got you excited about your study abroad program. And if you have any questions, you can always, reach out to me. Thank you.
Hey, Dominique. Thanks so much for joining me. It's nice to see you. So for everyone watching, I'm Suzanne Wiesme. I'm a regional director with ISA, and I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I am joined by one of our global ambassadors, Dominique, who is a student at Rowan University in New Jersey. And we're just having a fun, casual conversation, sort of going down memory lane with our experiences in Japan. We both studied abroad in Japan, but several years apart. And I just thought it would be fun for us to kind of talk about why we love the country, what brought us there, and kind of everything in between. So yeah, I guess the first question is, Dominique, how'd you choose Japan?
Sure. So I've always loved Japan, Japanese culture. my big brother, he was always a big nerd, so he liked anime, video games, all that kind of stuff. So I sort of got that inspiration from him. But then I really got into the language, and I've always wanted to be a teacher. So when I found out that I could teach English abroad and really help to bridge that language barrier between other cultures, I got really, really excited. So I really chose Japan because not only do I love the culture, but the opportunity to teach over there really just made me super excited. And how about you? Why were you interested,
Yeah. So, I mean, good for you that like you knew so, like you already learned so much about the culture and the language. I feel like my journey with figuring out where I wanted to study abroad was very different. I actually found out that I was interested in learning more about Japanese culture because of a virtual program that I did. So this is, I mean, back when no one was doing virtual study abroad programs like, we're doing in the pandemic. But I had a very eager sociology professor who was Japanese and had connections still in Japan, and was teaching sociology. And the topic was globalization, and like what a better way to demonstrate the capabilities and like the interconnectedness of the world than through having this virtual exchange opportunity as part of the class. So I got to meet Japanese students and present projects and have kind of like discussion topics, and that really inspired me when I was considering studying abroad, of like learning more and taking the opportunity to travel there. So I studied abroad on a program where I was able to go to like several different countries, but was really excited about being able to visit Japan, and then had the opportunity later on to go back and go to Japan again. So I actually was inspired to go twice. But I think it was, I didn't know the language. I didn't like know that much about the culture, but I was just really, I think, inspired to learn because of those early connections that I was able to make. So I applaud you for like doing all of the research and being the student I wasn't. Yeah, but I mean, Japan is such an amazing place. Like when you were there, what happened in your time? Like what was your favorite thing to do? Like what did you do while you were in Japan?
Japan, it's so fun because so many places in Japan, there's so many different aspects. So like all the towns are really different, and you really get a different part of Japanese culture from each town. So one of my favorite things to do was on the weekends or during the weekdays after class when I had downtime, either with friends or maybe even by myself. We would just hop on a train and just get off at some station, either Tokyo, outside of Tokyo, and just explore that
Wait,
city.
like randomly, like you had
Just randomly
research? Wow.
Yeah. So we would go and we would just like walk around and pick a place, like one of the hole in the wall places to eat, and maybe go to an izakaya and drink and just like meet some locals. So that was probably one of my favorite things to do, just explore like around and get to know people from all around.
Oh,
how about you? Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my time was a little bit more structured because like the first time I went, I had like a very brief amount of time I was able to be there. And then the second time it was like a much more structured type of program. But definitely like taking advantage of the bullet trains, and getting from one end to the other. I loved being able to try I'm a huge like foodie person.
Yeah.
I plan my travel based on where I'm going to eat. And so trying, just like random street vendors, they had like the swirly potatoes on the stick, like the fried potatoes. And then like pastries, because there's some of like the French influence with the pastries in Japan. So yeah, like trying the pastries, or like I tried Korean fried chicken for the first time and fell in love, like as somebody who was raised in the South, like, oh. So I feel like that was like what I was occupying my time. It was definitely like that, like food. And then like also I did a lot of hiking when I was in Japan, like to all like the different Shinto shrines. I don't know if like you're into hiking or.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, we hiked Mount Takao. We visited Mount Fuji and got up to the fifth base.
Wow.
We went to Kyoto and like the Fushimi Inari Shrine, a couple of the shrines over there. So I love hiking too.
Oh, and it's a great place to do it. Like you're like all of the different shrines, all of the different places that you can get to. I mean, it's incredible. It's like so beautiful. And then you can get right off the train and just like go hiking somewhere. I feel like I don't have those same opportunities here. So tell me a favorite memory of when you were abroad, Dominique.
It's so hard. There's like so many memories to choose from, you know. I guess one of my favorite things is every Friday. So I lived in Fuchinobe, and we lived like a 5-minute walk away from the station. So we called it the Fuch. That was our station. And every Friday night, the international students, Japanese students from the school, we would all go to like to a convenience like 7-Eleven or Family Mart, and we would get
7-Eleven. I lived at
so did I. I got like all my meals there, like so cheap, so tasty.
And the Wi-Fi.
And the Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi. But we would just go there, we'd snacks, old enough, you know, get alcohol, and we would go underneath the train station, and we would all just have fun on a Friday night and talk, and locals, like Japanese locals, would just come by and skateboard. One time, a bunch of double Dutchers came, and we were doing double Dutch with random Japanese people. So every Friday night, we just like got together right under the train station and just hung out. So that's probably one of my favorite memories.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about the last time that I was in Japan. It was I think like right when finals were over. And so everyone was just out in the squares, like obviously there's so many different neighborhoods in Tokyo, but like in our neighborhood, it was like everyone was out in the square, just like hanging out and having a good time. And yeah, just like a really cool way to get to interact with people. I feel like my favorite memories definitely are around the people. Like when I was in Japan, just some of my fondest moments were just like meeting random people who were helping you, or people who were interested in what you were doing in Japan, because obviously, you know, you stand out a little bit. Or I did, at least. I stood out. I'm so tall, like but yeah, I feel like it was always around the people, just like such a warm, inviting culture. So like Tokyo, as I said, it's so big. I've never been to the neighborhood where JF Oberlin is. What's the neighborhood like? What did you do? Like, what is there to do?
So it's really nice. It's more of like a suburban area in Fuchinobe. So it's a nice little town. There's some shops. You really get to know the locals, and they get to know you, because the international dorm, it's like right there in the middle of the town. So they're always fascinated and like invite you into the store and want to practice, you know, Japanese with you and English. So that was really nice, that it was like a nice small community to where you really got to know the locals. And then Machida, where the campus is based, is the town of Machida is like a 5-minute train ride away, just 2 stops. And that's like a mini Tokyo, in my opinion. Like crowded streets, shops, izakayas, a couple department stores everywhere. So that was really nice, because it was a cheap train ride, like 5 minutes down the way, and it was less crowded than like Shinjuku, like Center City Tokyo, but still like so much to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool to hear, because I think that it could be overwhelming to, you know, when you're thinking about studying abroad in Tokyo. Like I'm thinking back when I was in like Shinjuku and like really busy neighborhoods. I mean, it's like being in Manhattan. And if that doesn't really jive with you, or if that's not really your lifestyle, it might seem, you know, that Japan might not be a good choice for you. But it sounds like with where the university is located, you kind of have the best of both worlds. Like you can kind of get that more residential feel, but also like hop right into the city. I think that's something that was interesting to me when I was in Japan, was like, obviously Tokyo is this huge city, but it's also so quiet. Like, of course, depending where you are, but I could feel like I could hear my own footsteps sometimes. It was just weird to be like in this big city, and feel like I'm so loud and like I need to be quieter. That was definitely something that was a little bit surprising to me. Was there anything that surprised you about your time in Japan?
I guess originally going into Japan, I was more like an introvert, and I came out as an extrovert.
Oh wow!
So that was nice. I found that it was very easy to make friends, especially with the Japanese students who didn't even know English, and I had been studying Japanese for 3 years before, so I had a decent level, but still there were times when I had no clue what they were saying. But it really amazed me to how, even though there's that language barrier, you could still have fun and go out and have fun together, even just with gestures and expressions. So I honestly, really surprised me how many Japanese friends I made and how I'm still in contact with most of them today, which is really
So
awesome.
cool. That's so cool to hear. Yeah, I have a friend who I met through my program, and she came to stay with me in DC for like a week.
Oh, it's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, we've been able to keep up. And every time I have a birthday, it's always my Japanese friends that are the first to wish me happy birthday, like on Facebook or something, because of the time difference. They're obviously the first ones up. So it's fun to like always get like that special reminder. But I think it's just amazing when you can have those connections that really go, that you're able to keep past your program. How did you blend in? Did you try to blend in? Like how did you try to avoid looking like a local?
Like a tourist.
Trying to look like a local.
I guess like at first you definitely do stand out and you get used to the stares. Like I have my blonde hair, so everyone's like, whoa, like that's really cool, But I feel like just making Japan your home, I felt even after 2 weeks, I felt like I belonged. I felt so at home there, even just going on the trains late at night by myself. So really just getting comfortable with where you are. And by that, like exploring, like don't just stay in that bubble. Like if you can, push yourself to get out to explore, because I think that makes you less of a tourist, especially when you're going to those non-tourist places, like a group of 5 non-Japanese people getting off at a random stop, and all the Japanese people are like, why are you here? But eventually they're like, oh, okay, like they probably live here, So just really getting comfortable with where you are and trying not to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Yeah, I think like any opportunity that you have to talk to locals and to try to use the like Japanese language. I knew very little, but I definitely noticed that I felt much more comfortable when I learned how to say, hello, please, thank you, excuse me, like, asking for help in Japanese. Those sorts of little like key phrases made a huge difference in how comfortable I felt. I want to kind of like switch gears and I want to talk souvenirs.
Okay.
Did you buy souvenirs? What did you buy? Like, what are you so happy that you have? If you did buy souvenirs, let's get the inside scoop.
Well, if you look behind me, there's like that banner on the wall. It's one of them.
Oh yeah.
And then above on that bookshelf, if you see like the Shiba plushies, that's my pleasure. I love Shibas. So I had a vacuum bag stuffed with Shiba plushies that I vacuumed together. So stuff like that. I love the banners. I got like some china sets, like chopsticks, stuff like that. I really tried to be smart with my souvenirs, since you do only have 1 or 2 suitcases.
Right.
So the main thing was like little banners like that, a plushie here and there, pins. But there's so much that you can buy. There's so many like sweets and just so many choices that you can get for souvenirs in Japan.
My guilty pleasure is the Kit Kats. Like that's what every time that I've been, I'm stocked up on Kit Kats.
I got like 3 boxes of those too.
So what flavor do you like?
I love the Tokyo banana.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite. And then I love the sake Kit Kat.
Okay. I'm a green tea fan.
Okay.
The matcha, oh my gosh, it's my favorite. It's so funny. So I just, we don't have a lot of time here, but I just wanted to kind of leave off with some advice. Like, what advice did you have for someone who was looking to study abroad in Japan?
Definitely like just go for it. Like, I want to sound cliche, but studying abroad in Japan was probably the best decision I ever made. Again, I said like I went in as more of an introvert and came out as more of an extrovert. The culture's amazing, the people are amazing, the food's amazing. Honestly, there's nothing bad I can say about my experience. And I feel like if whoever is listening right now, if you want to go to Japan, as long as you take that step forward, I can guarantee you're going to love your time there, and you're going to regret only staying for a semester like that, like I did. I'm going back this summer, hopefully. So stay as long as you can and just push those boundaries and get out there, because I think you'll love it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. No fear, right? Like trying as much as you can, doing as as much as you can, having as many experiences as possible. Yeah, even if something is different from what you're used to, I think just having those experiences and putting yourself out there and, asking, for forgiveness if you make a mistake, that's all you can do. And I think that people in Japan really respect that. And they don't expect that you're going to know everything. And they're very gracious. So yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Thanks so much, Dominique. It was really fun to kind of reminisce with you. And I mean, any chance that I get to talk about Japan and my travel stories, I think, all my friends are probably tired of hearing about it. So thanks for kind of going down memory lane with me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy sharing my experiences.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed that conversation between Suzanne Fils-Aimé and our lovely global ambassador, Dominique from Rowan University. I always get so excited when I hear the students speak about their experiences. And I hope so far that you all have found a lot of value in the conversation and just pulling the curtain, and getting an opportunity to really get to know the people at ISA. So for our next segment, I'm really excited to invite our alumni coordinator or director, Zach Muskin, on the stage, along with a few more of our global ambassadors. And we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. I'm pretty sure everyone here is asking about scholarships and funding. How do we navigate that process? All right, so I'll go ahead and kick it over to you, Zach.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Candy. Really appreciate it. For my GAs on this call, if y'all could pop on your cameras and go off mute, that would be great. We'll do a quick intro. You can kind of start with your name and the university that you go to. I'll start with a quick intro myself as well. I'm Zach Muskin. I'm the director of our alumni relations department and our student outreach team. I studied abroad with ISA many moons ago. I'm obviously get the opportunity to work and talk to these lovely GAs all the time. So Alexander, why don't you go ahead and do a quick intro for us?
Hello, thank you, Zach. My name is Alexander. I'm a native of Rhode Island and attended university at Clark University. That's where my home undergrad was, and I signed up for an ISA program, the Euro Scholars Program, to go to Leuven, Belgium for a semester right here.
That's great. What about you, Gabriella?
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriella. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I studied abroad in Seoul, South Korea, 2019 for the fall semester. I go to University of Florida, but I already graduated, so I guess I'm an alumni now of University of Florida. So yeah.
Nice, thanks. How about you, Allison?
Hey guys, my name is Allie. It says Allison, but you can call me Allie. I go to the University of Tennessee, and I studied abroad last semester in Salamanca, Spain with ISA.
Nice. And to round it out, how about you, Martina?
Yes, I'm Martina. I'm a global ambassador at Missouri State University. I'm a senior this year, and I studied abroad at the University of Glasgow in Glasgow, Scotland in the fall of 19, and then I studied in Paris, France in the spring of 21. And this is University of Glasgow.
Nice, love that. All right, so I'll just jump right in, kind of wanting to know how finances maybe played a role in some of the programs that y'all selected or maybe didn't select. Can any of you maybe give us a little brief background as to maybe an answer you have to that question?
Yeah, I could start if that's okay. Yeah. So I think the biggest scholarship I received is the Gilman scholarship, which is sponsored by the Department of State, and it's administered by a third party, and it's a scholarship specifically for students that receive Pell Grants. So to be eligible, I'm an ambassador for it, by the way, as a disclosure. But it is, you have to have a Pell Grant scholarship. And it's for students that are underrepresented and typically study abroad population. So people like me who have disabilities, people that are first generation college students, people who maybe their parents didn't speak English natively. So a wide variety, and then you complete a service project, and they give you a few $1,000s in cash, and it applies for remote as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, and thank you for throwing that out there. How about you, Gabriella?
I believe, well, to start off with like the original question, I think one of the biggest factors of the program I chose obviously was financial, but the length of the program too. I believe a lot of ISA programs, they do have semester programs, which are a lot more expensive than doing a summer program. So that was a big factor that I had to take into consideration because I didn't have any saved up money to do my study abroad program. So for me, I chose my program mainly because I wanted to go to Korea. Like it was a very specific location, and I did really want to go for longer than 2 months. I wanted to go for a whole semester. So when it came time to applying for scholarships, I had to really apply to as many scholarships as I could because the amount was much bigger for a full semester. And I was also given the Gilman Award, but I also got a lot of different scholarships from like my university. ISA itself gave me a scholarship, and then also just a couple more things. So it did add up, and I eventually got it fully covered. But it's definitely very important to figure out if you want to do that semester program and to take it like into consideration how much more expensive that's going to be since you're staying for a longer time.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, right? I mean, if you're interested in going for a short 4-week, 6-week, or if you want to stay for an entire year, it is really important to kind of take a look at some of the pricing involved, maybe some of the things that you're offered through your home university as well as ISA. So yeah, I think those are all really, really good points to hit on. How about you, Ali?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Gabriella. I think before I chose my study abroad program, finances were a concern for me. And I think I felt a little intimidated by that and figuring out, how do I find opportunities? Am I really going to be able to afford to do this? And what I learned is that, yes, there's way more opportunities than you think. ISA, has many scholarship opportunities, but outside of that, I think looking to see what your own university has is also really important. Like my major specifically had a scholarship that paid for the majority of my program, and I ended up getting another scholarship for my university and didn't need to look into ISA scholarships because I got my program fully covered for a semester, which is really awesome. And so I think just general scholarship advice is don't be intimidated by the financial aspect of studying abroad because it's so doable. You just really have to search for those opportunities. ISA provides those, which is why I love ISA compared to other programs. And then, yeah, focusing on what your own university has as well is really helpful.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I love that. And I want to come back to that. I definitely want to ask some more questions on that route. How about you, Martina? Any kind of last comments in regards to the first question?
Yeah, so I didn't expect it, but any of the scholarships that I had that were applied to my semesters here in the US, they all applied to my program abroad. And that's not something that I expected. So definitely talk to your financial aid office at your university, and you'll know exactly like how much you have covered already, like how much you need to look for outside scholarships. So definitely get in contact with them.
Yeah, that's a really, really important thing to remember is a lot of the time, if you have current scholarships, financial aid, things like that, those will likely go towards your study abroad program. So it's important to ask those types of questions. And this is kind of, again, across the board, going back to outside scholarships or scholarships with ISA. How did y'all go about searching for those? How did you get started? What were some of the first places you looked, and maybe what were some of the resources on campus that helped you find some of those scholarships? And yeah, we can go with Alexander if you want to get us started.
Thank you. I think the best resources I had were at my university, Clark University, their study abroad program. They're very helpful. The offices are very helpful. And I think in terms of like just searching online and searching often as much as you can, because there's a lot of there are like any website that has scholarships, just go through them, go through the links, because there's a lot of good information just hidden. And there's also like communities like ISA, and then go on Facebook, like groups like ISA and other groups like that. They will post scholarships because they know it's an interesting community.
Yeah, how about you, Ali?
Yeah, I would say my study abroad office on campus was definitely the best resource I could have used, because everyone there is, their job is to help you and support you. They know what scholarships are out there. They can talk to you, figure out your financial situation, and see what's going to be the best fit for you. They can even guide you in finding outside scholarships, which is really helpful. So I would say definitely visit your study abroad office, talk to counselors. If that's not an option, reach out to ISA, email ISA, because everyone's there to help you. So.
Yeah, and Gabriella and Martina, what was your experience with maybe working with ISA on some of these things? Getting those scholarships passed over to your ISA programs, or moving some of the different funding pieces into that program. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the first thing I think is important to know is that I had my location and length of program already settled. And so when I started applying for the scholarships, most of my scholarships that I got were either from my university or from ISA or from the government. So when it came time to transfer the scholarships into my program, the ones with ISA was easily transferred because it's through ISA. But when it came to like the Gilman scholarship or the ones from my university, there was a form that we had to fill out, and it has to be approved by the study abroad advisor in your school. And it was relatively very, very easy to do it, especially when it's from like bigger like scholarship corporations, not corporations, but like programs that give you that because they understand what that scholarship is. I don't know much about like the smaller scholarships because most of the ones that I got were very like the main ones that you get. But it was a relatively very simple process. Once you get all the money, you just write it down in a form, submit it, and it's applied into the final balance on your ISA portal. So it was really easy.
Great, thank you. And Martina.
Yeah, so one thing I suggest is definitely just ask the study abroad office, ask the university, ask ISA. You don't know what you could be missing out on. I got in contact with ISA, and because I had a sister go abroad with ISA, I got a discount for that. So if I didn't ask, I wouldn't have even known about that. So definitely, and also look at scholarships you already have. Some of my scholarships had a study abroad grant that would be automatically applied if I just asked. So make sure you're getting in contact with the people that know all about it. They want to help you, and they will if you reach out.
I just want to give you snaps for throwing that out there, because just asking is a huge piece of this entire process. If you were here for the earlier navigating your application session, I think reiterating, just ask, right? ISA is here to help. We want to answer your questions. We want to get you to the right place. And when it comes to scholarships and funding, that's a huge piece of it. So in regards to funding your program, how did you go about kind of managing or budgeting while you were abroad? Obviously you had scholarships and things like that, but how were you able to make it work while you were actually abroad, spending money on things that maybe wasn't for school? Alexander.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, my impressions of traveling were going to be like, oh, I'm going to crisscross to every city. And what I found was that it was just so stressful, getting on a plane and just jumping to every city every weekend, because it takes you out of your, community. It takes you out of the moment where you're meeting people. So I think my, to take the money, I just kept it liquid, I didn't I really tried to avoid saying I'm going to commit my spending money to a trip like 2 or 3 weeks down the line, because maybe it won't be that fun. Maybe I'll have more fun if I just keep the cash on hand. And then some of my friends are like, oh, let's go to the beach or something instead.
How about you, Ali?
Yeah, this really is a great question. I think my first piece of advice would be to make a budget, but make it a loose budget. Sort of like Alexander said, you can kind of have in mind what you're going to want to be spending when you get over there. Like for me, I knew that I wanted to try food outside of the meals I was having with my host mom. I knew that I wanted to shop because Spain has great sales. And so those were things that I kept in mind. I knew I wanted to take a few trips. And so I did sort of budget for those, but there's also, when you get over there, you're going to have opportunities to spend money where you may not have anticipated beforehand because it's study abroad and you're experiencing all of these new things. And so, yeah, I would say make a budget, but, you know, I think it's okay if it's loose. No pressure to sort of stick to it a ton, but know sort of those main things that you may want to be spending money on.
Yeah, I love the loose budget, but I think it's also an important takeaway. So study abroad helps you figure out how to budget too. I think there's a lot of different things that go into kind of managing your money and things like that, so that you can still have fun, still enjoy, still try. So yeah, what about you, Martina?
Yes, so I think you'll probably definitely spend more money abroad than you would in just your semester at home. But some things that I learned are places have student discounts. You can get student discount places. In the UK, there was like a comparison of Groupon, and you could do things like that. So there's definitely opportunities that aren't that expensive. Flights around Europe were very cheap. I could get like 36 pounds round trip to a different country. So if the opportunities are there, if you really do look for them. Another piece of advice, if you really want to make sure you're sticking to your budget, you can just take out cash and only keep with you what you're willing to spend.
That's great. And then Gabriella, any kind of final thoughts that you want to add in there as well?
Yeah, everyone pretty much got all the things. Definitely taking into cash and spending as much as you have is what I did. But also I took into consideration, depending on which country you're in, the food, transportation, everything might be a little more expensive. So what I did is that I saved up a lot before I worked a lot of jobs to make sure that when I go over there, I had a lot of fun. But thankfully, it's a big city, it's a big country, but it's relatively cheaper than, let's say, Japan or America, for example. So I was able to really budget really good. And also in student areas, food is way cheaper because you're in a student area. So I took advantage of a lot of those deals. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, y'all. And I think, Candy, we have a question or two from the audience.
Yes. First of all, thank you all so much. I think this conversation is very important. So thank you for being vulnerable and open and honest about what it means to manage your finances with regard to such a big decision like studying abroad. One of the questions in the chat focused on financial aid. And I know you all spoke about that, but I'm wondering if we could maybe speak a little bit more about the nitty gritty and the actual process of like financial aid, because I know financial aid is something that actually varies from state to state. So who would like to talk about that?
Well, from my experience with the application, this ISA was recognized as like a trusted vendor with Clark University. So that means that Clark University has already verified with the ISA that your study abroad, your financial aid and your existing tuition agreement with my school would transfer to the exchange program.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that there's something important there with regard to the relationship, right? About having ISA be a trusted partner and what that means when it comes time, not only for credits, but when it comes times for funds being transferred over. I want to kind of touch on one more thing. I think someone mentioned looking at program price with regard to the price of a summer program versus the price of a semester program. And I want to just clarify for those of you all watching, price is going to vary depending on location. Okay, so maybe when you think about the strength of the dollar, all right, and how far it can go in each country, tuition models will change with regard to, you know, the quarter system, and then the money will change. So make sure you look closely at the program price and look at what you're getting included in the price. For example, housing is included, excursions are included, and looking at how long the program actually is, and going over that with your academic advisors and with your study abroad advisors, as well as your financial aid officers, because they have a lot of hidden gems for you. Okay. All right. So thank you again, everybody, for coming on. I think we're gonna kick it over to Jenny as we get ready to talk more about how we can really get into hacking your application. All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks to all of our alumni for chipping in with their own experience and recommendations. So we are going to dive into the Hack Your App Scholarship Cheat Code session. I'm joined by two of my wonderful colleagues, a fellow regional director, as well as the coordinator of our service learning programs. And they both have experience reviewing study abroad scholarship applications. So you're getting the insider tips. So I will turn that over to them and we'll get started.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm glad to be here. And if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, we will introduce ourselves. So my name's Colton, and I am one of the regional directors for ISA. My area is the Pacific Northwest. And so I've been up here in the Pacific Northwest helping students with abroad sorts of stuff for a little bit over a decade. So I'll pass it to my colleague, Becky.
Hi, everybody. My name is Becky Ritchie. My pronouns are she and her. Like Jenny mentioned, I work in our service learning department and in a curriculum and academic capacity. I have reviewed scholarships for our service learning scholarship, for our diversity scholarship at ISA, and I also volunteer with the Fund for Education Abroad, which is an external organization committed to creating scholarships for students going abroad. And I've done that for a few cycles, and it's been a really rewarding experience, and hopefully I can share some of the lessons I've learned with that with you all.
Awesome. So first, we're going to go a little bit into the scoreboard, if you will. If you haven't noticed, this is Hack Your App, as in games. So everything has a little bit of a game theme here. That's the brainchild of my colleague, Jenny. Absolutely brilliant, if you ask me. But anyway, into the content. So about 10% of ISA students apply for ISA scholarships. And so obviously, the more people playing the game, the harder it is to get onto the leaderboard. But if not very many people are playing, it's pretty easy to sneak in there. And so that, I would say, in terms of scholarships, is the biggest mistake that students make, is just not applying at all. Because you might assume that it might be really difficult, or that your application isn't quite good enough. But really, it's more about the old Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You just got to put it out there. You just got to take the shot. Not to mix video games and sports, but that's who I am as a person. So about half of the students use financial aid that go on ISA programs, which shows that there's a need. And actually 75% of students receive some sort of scholarship or grant or discount from ISA for their programs. And so even though students might not be actively applying for the scholarships that require applications, through other sorts of agreements, a lot of students just receive financial aid from us. In fact, it's so much that it's 1 million dollars a year that we give away in scholarships and grants. And so it's a lot of money. And several of our host universities abroad also offer their own scholarships. So the big takeaway from the scoreboard here is that if you don't get into the game, then you'll never be able to win the game. So don't miss your chance to get in. So in terms of creating a little bit of a strategy for going through here, the big thing that is probably the biggest thing in order to get started is to start as early as you can. The earlier you start researching, the more likely it is that you're going to find the scholarships that are going to be reasonably applicable to you. And that is going to be another big component of actually successfully applying. So whatever sorts of tracking that you have, whatever sorts of calendar you keep, if you keep an actual physical calendar still, or if you have a smartphone app or somewhere in between, put the actual deadlines for the scholarships that you're interested in into that calendar system, because then you're not going to be able to not forget. In fact, one of my favorite scholarship aggregators, it's called Scholly, that automatically built in, you can sort scholarships by when they're due. And so that's a really easy way to make it a little bit simpler on yourself. And also, in advance, before you have to actually ask for this, identify the different professors and advisors who are willing to write you letters of recommendation ahead of time, because it might take them a couple of weeks. They're pretty busy people, and you want to give them plenty of time to not only be respectful of their time, but also just from pure practicality. You want to be able to successfully get in there and get it done. And if they can't get it done on your timeline, then that might disqualify you from some scholarships. And so you want to be as prepared as possible and ask nice and early if you need people to help you out. And then a handful of things that are really common mistakes that you could avoid or should avoid. I mean, you can and should avoid. One is, we've said this a few different times, but it's worth repeating, waiting too late to start gathering application materials and to start looking. Staying ahead of the curve is probably the single most helpful thing that you can do for yourself in order to give yourself a shot at actually getting scholarships. And in terms of normal timeline, you should actually apply for your study abroad program first. Not all scholarships require it, but enough scholarships require that your study abroad program has already been applied for, that if you don't just get in and do that application, you'll probably miss out on some opportunities. And so just make sure you get in, get the study abroad program applied for, and then you can make sure that you're getting all of the scholarships that you'll reasonably be eligible for. And double check yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes typos. Everyone omits documents. I do it more maybe than the average person. So just be aware of your own shortcomings and double check and make sure that you are able to click off like, okay, I need the essay. I've got the essay. I need the transcript. I've got the transcript. Like literally go through, maybe even say it out loud to yourself to make sure that you're not missing some piece that maybe is a small piece. But for most scholarships, if you're missing a small piece, it's entirely disqualifying. And so all of your work would be down the drain. Make sure you directly address the essay prompt. If there is an essay prompt, it's really important that you actually talk about that. You have to answer the questions. It's not just something that you can kind of freewheel and say what you want. Well, I mean, you can, but then they won't give you money. And that's kind of the point of this game, is to get the money. And then the last part is make sure that the essay portion of what you write, if it's an essay-based scholarship, which most are, actually gets reviewed by someone that's not you before you turn it in. Because the way that you write and the quality of your writing really makes a big difference in terms of being able to clearly communicate your ideas so that you can ultimately get that scholarship award.
Thanks, Colton. And going off of that, talking more about the essay and your application. So I've had a lot of students that I've spoken to who are applying for a program or practicing interviews say they have just like their degree on their resume. And then I ask them some more questions, and it turns out they have all of these volunteer opportunities that they've done, leadership positions that they don't even think to add there. Maybe you think everybody does this, it doesn't set me apart, but it really does. So taking the time to create your character, get your ranks and your interests and what sets you apart. I know that's a daunting question, what sets you apart, but it's an answerable one. So thinking about your background, lived experiences, what got you into your major, what got you to school, what got you to wanting to study abroad. Talk about your academic interests and professional goals and personal goals. Those are all sometimes what essays are asking for specifically. So thinking about them beyond your campus experience, how your abroad experience is going to help you move forward, and also how your experiences so far will make you a successful study abroad student. So what's your quest? What are you hoping to get out of the experience is another thing that we look for in essays when I'm reviewing. There we go. Here's a checkpoint to save your materials. A lot like applying for jobs, you may be applying to a bunch of different scholarships at the same time. So back up all of your essays that you've written before, because maybe you study abroad and then maybe you apply for something later on. You're going to want to use the content that you spent all of this time creating for your scholarship essays. So save that on Google Drive, on a different cloud service. Those are usually more reliable than a desktop or a hard drive, or do that as well. Creating a master doc of personal stories and past essays, that's something that I did myself as I was applying for jobs. This kind of works well with scholarships because maybe you'll write an essay where they ask a specific question and then you can take parts of it out and use it for another scholarship. And that's where what Colton brought up earlier about reviewing your essay. So maybe you can't really copy and paste an entire essay that you used before. Maybe you mentioned Korea, now you're applying for a trip in Spain, and just that one error will make you stand out in the wrong way. Yeah, and then create your master list of references and contacts for references if an application is asking for that for letter writing, and for people who can read over your content as well, people that you trust and look up to that can look over your things and vouch for you if needed. And then finally, your LEAT tips. It's a phrase that I learned from Colton yesterday. So some higher level tips. Yeah, you got your story ready. You know what you're applying for. What's going to set you to the next level? So again, what makes you unique? Think about your experiences, maybe do a little bit of comparison, but not too much as always. But what challenges have you overcome in your life to get you to this point? Colton mentioned this before, not in this session, but before, but this is a time where setbacks or challenges are things that can literally get you money to go abroad. So mention these things to your comfortability, but they are the reasons why these scholarships are in place so students can go abroad, especially students who have had situations out of their control where they are not financially prepared to study abroad on their own. Another one for a reader perspective, breaking up your essay into paragraphs. People are reading scholarships, for example, hundreds in some cases, in other cases, 30. When you're reading a big block of text, you're getting ready after reading a bunch of other blocks of text. So break up your essay into paragraphs. Make sure those sentences are as short as they can be and not droning on, or if you need to cut up one sentence into two, that really helps the reader, and that psychologically makes them like you more because it's becoming a less effortless experience reading your essay too. Again, reading over your essay for grammar, that is something that setting someone, you have two left, one has a grammar error, one doesn't, the one that might get the scholarship. So yeah, take your essay to a writing center at your university, reach out to someone that you trust, a professor, and if you have a program manager, sometimes with ISA, we're happy to help you out too. And then going back, making sure that everything that the prompt asked is answered in your assignment, and making sure that it's tying back to the prompt and you have enough examples, raw, tangible examples to connect back to the prompt.
And then finally, all your scholarships belong to us. Somebody set us up the bomb. Oh wait, no, that's a different. So I don't know if y'all know Zero Wing. Maybe not. It's classic internet. If you don't, you should look it up. You'll be glad you did. But be like cats. Get all the scholarships. So step number one, get strategic. Actually listen to what we're saying because we have a lot of experience. We're literally the people who make these decisions. And so if you are going to listen to someone, maybe listen to us because we're telling you how to take our money. So listen. Second, get the money. Get that money that we're literally trying to give to you. And then third, get gone. get out of here, go and live your adventure, go study abroad, go explore. If you have questions about any of this, you're always welcome to reach out to us. Those are the two easiest contact methods there down below our friend Kat's. isa@studiesabroad.com is the email, and the phone number that will get you in contact with someone is 1-512-480-8522. I feel like I'm on a telephone, but instead of taking people's money, we're giving away money, or at least telling you how you can. So please go get some money and be like cats. That's the quote we'll leave you with. Be like cats.
Oh my God, Colton, you crack me up. Thank you both so much. That was awesome. I definitely learned a few things myself just for life. Those were some excellent tips. And I hope all of you all who are watching pulled out your pen and your paper and we're writing those down. We're going to go ahead and reset the space. Thank you so much, Becky and Colton. All right. So again, to everyone here, welcome to the ISA Live Expo, where we're going to talk and have real conversations about what it's like to study abroad and getting to know ISA. All right. Again, my name is Candace. I'm one of the regional directors here, and I want to tell you all again about the raffle opportunity. You are in luck if you're here because you have the chance to win a $1,000 flight voucher for anywhere you'd like to go. If you are registered for the event, if you've already dropped your name, your major, and your university in the chat, then you are registered. But if you want an extra chance to register, watch out for one of our raffle opportunities, all right? If you want to enter to do a raffle, you have to follow us on Instagram. We are at ISA Abroad on Instagram, and you have to DM us the correct answer. First person gets the extra entry. All right. So next trivia question. Cityscape. Where are we? Where is this cityscape? Someone go ahead and hop on over to ISA Abroad on Instagram and DM us your answer for that extra chance to win $1,000. I don't know about you all, but after that conversation about hacking your application for scholarships and talking about money, I could definitely use a scholarship and $1,000 to get to my next destination. So I want to go ahead and introduce our next, yeah, this is what we want. I want to go ahead and make sure that you all know about our Valentine's Day promotion that we're running right now. All right. If you are interested in starting your application, I suggest you do it before the day ends. You can apply for free. All right. You can go ahead and skip that $95 deposit and get started on the process. I think I saw a question in the chat. Someone asked if you have to complete your application by the end of the day. No, you have to start your application by the end of the day. So go ahead and hop on over to the website. Also, it is Black History Month, and here at ISA, we are definitely wanting to lift up all of our students in an inclusive manner. So I want to go ahead and highlight one of our students, Bernard Akim. All right, he studied abroad with us in 2014, and he said, "I learned that happiness and joy are contagious." So here's one of the students that ISA helped to, make their story. All right. Also want to go ahead and throw in, again, another plug for our virtual opportunities for any students who are interested in learning about how you can travel around the world right from your living room. Be sure to check the chat. Someone will drop some resources so you can participate in an internship or a remote learning opportunity with one of our partner institutions abroad. All right, so next up, I'm so excited because we have a live podcast with Charis Tucker and Malaika Serrano from here at World Strides. We're going to have another alumni panel where you get to hear from real students. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about the danger of a single narrative and talk about some of our partners in Latin America. All right, so we're so thrilled to welcome today Charis Tucker, who is the founder of the Stamped podcast. All right, she's also the founder of Travel Gene, and today we have a live podcast with Stamp featuring our very own Malaika Serrano, who is the head of our diversity, equity, and inclusion team at our parent company, World Strides. Hi, how are you all?
Hi, doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and let you all do your thing and sign off here, and you are in control.
Thanks, Candace.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Well, welcome everyone to a conversation from the field with Malaika Serrano and Charis Tucker. Malaika, thanks for being here today.
Charis, thank you so much. I'm so excited about this.
Me too. As I was preparing for our session today, I was thinking back to probably the first time we met, I think was at a Virginia International Educators Conference. And it was the first time I'd actually decided to share my research on Black travel and how to connect that to the study abroad experiences of Black students. So I remember you being so warm, welcoming, and I appreciated that as a newbie in international ed. So thanks.
Yeah, no, Charis, thank you. I remember that fondly as well. I was reflecting on that opportunity that we met, I guess it was about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And particularly when you talked about the Green Book, that really spoke to me as an African-American. And I think that as we kind of get going in our conversation today, I want to lift that back up, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Any chance to talk about the Green Book, I'm more than happy to. Well, let's jump right in. I love to learn about the early travel experiences of our guests. So can you tell us a little bit about what travel was like for you growing up?
Absolutely. So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't honor my father by sharing just a brief story about how I came to have the name Malaika. Because it all makes sense, I think, into, just my passion for international travel and education and how I got to be where I am today. So in 1970, my dad was a junior and he studied abroad at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. He was there for a year. And while he was there, he heard a song called Malaika.
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful song. And he said, you know what? If I ever have a daughter, I'm going to name her Malaika.
I love it. And here we are. I love that. I'm named after My Sharia More by Stevie Wonder. So got the song vibe going.
Hey, you know what, girl? I'm from Tuskegee. So that's, yeah. Love all the soul, love it all.
So that's really interesting that I don't know the actual statistics on this, but just that you're actually, I guess, what we'd consider second generation study abroad student, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely. Yeah, I am a second generation study abroad student. And I remember once I was at a conference and another African-American study abroad advisor and I were having a discussion. And I don't know what came over me, but I just suddenly stood up. Mm-hmm. If my friend Shelly Alfaro is listening in the room, she'll remember this story because she was there. And I said, hey, everybody, I want you to take a look at us, okay? 2 sisters, 2 Black women here, all right? Now just imagine that we're walking into your office and think about, what kind of, as Candace, kindly lifted up here. Later on, y'all will be talking about the danger of a single narrative. So what kind of single story narratives, may be sort of implicitly placed upon me or another African-American student walking into the space. But here you have 2 Black women coming in. One is actually a second generation study abroad student, and the other is a first generation college student, but you'd never know who was who, right? So you just can't make assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. And that was actually one of the biggest motivators for starting Stamped was I wanted to kind of offer a different perspective on, what are the experiences? So instead of focusing on, oh, the number is still low, we need to get more students of color abroad. Well, let's talk to someone to figure out how they got there. So with that in mind, Tell us, since you already knew about study abroad coming into college, do you remember what those beginning experiences were like? How did you decide where to go? What was your major? Tell us all the deets.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And love that you are centering this conversation around Black joy. That's really great. So as I mentioned before, my dad, he studied abroad at the University of Nairobi in Kenya, and all throughout my childhood and into adolescence, I grew up hearing his incredible stories. And every time I heard a story, I said, oh my goodness, I have got to have this experience. I've got to have the experience. Along the way, my parents were really great about instilling the joy and the interest in travel, amongst all of us as we were kind of coming up. But when it came to looking for universities, that was actually a deciding factor for me. And I don't mind dating myself. I did go to college in the 90s. So kind of the dawn of the internet, if you will. And I had my book, I had my college book, and I was looking. And I wanted to see if universities were offering study abroad opportunities, because I knew I wanted to have that experience. So that's one of the reasons, or one of the ways that I kind of honed in on the University of Southern California, which is where I went to SC for undergrad. So any SC Trojans out there, hey, fight on. always, get a little shout out in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. And what was your major there?
Sure. So my major was sociology, and I minored in psychology.
Nice. All right. And so with that idea in mind, did you visit the study abroad office? How did you know how to navigate that process? Because I would imagine it looks somewhat different perhaps than your father's experience navigating it. Talk to us about that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so with Dad's experience, they didn't have a study abroad program to Kenya at his institution, but it was part of a consortium. So even way back then, my dad knew that he wanted to go abroad. I'm telling you, this gene, it's deep, runs deep.
Real deep.
Yeah, my kiddos, they already know. I'm already talking about gap years. I'm already planting the seeds.
I love it.
That was a priority for me. And so I remember the study abroad office was kind of in the cut. I had to go into this building and then, turn left, turn right. And this is one of the neat things, about our field. It really is a nice community. I think Charis, as you mentioned before, and my study abroad advisor is a wonderful man named Dr. Gary Rhodes. And Gary is a legend in our field, an absolute legend. And he was so wonderful. He was so wonderful. I remember his patience. When I'd go into the office, I'd pull those bins off the shelves, again, books, right, y'all? Okay.
Books, yeah.
Just looking up things. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go, Charis. I knew I wanted to go somewhere where no one I knew had ever been before. Yeah.
That's pretty, that's pretty, I don't know, challenging. I think a lot of students, you hear lots of popular destinations. So how did you narrow it down?
Well, so this was pre-Olympics. Okay. So I had to preface that because it was definitely a shift after the Olympics. But I quickly kind of narrowed in on Australia.
Okay.
And a couple of reasons. One was that they offered a lot of classes that both, satisfied my major requirements, but they also offer classes that were not available at USC. For example, I took a course on Australians and Aboriginal society. I took another one looking at gender identity in South Pacific communities. So just really, for me back then, far out, wow, I really want to, dive into all of this. And so my institution had a program with the Australian National University in Canberra.
Okay.
And that is where I went. That's where I studied abroad for a semester.
I love that. I think really getting the opportunity to, broaden the spectrum of classes that you can take while you're abroad is one of the most beneficial things about the opportunity, because I remember my students would come back just so excited about, their comparative classes in Korea or Japanese art classes. Really, truly amazing experiences for them. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess then you really didn't deal, because it was so ingrained in your family, this notion of travel, with any, I guess, challenges from family members. I mean, no, Australia's a pretty big jump.
It is. And you want to know something kind of cute? I moved like fairly recently, and I was like looking through old letters and things, and I found a letter that I had written my mother asking permission to study abroad in so cute in Australia. And actually, it was her reply back to me. She's like, da, 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 da. And yes, you may study abroad in Australia. So I still have that, which is, kind of, yeah, it is. It's kind of nice. So no, my family was extremely supportive. The only thing that kind of made me hesitate was actually, I was super involved on campus.
Yeah.
I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Oh.
Yeah, yes.
What about you today?
Hey, you know what? Pretty girls wear 20 pearls. That's all but you know what, Charis, I had just crossed, and that was my neophyte year. And so, I was going to miss out on all the fun. But what was more important to me was having this opportunity, because I just remember, again, just growing up and hearing the stories from my dad. I mean, my name, came from that experience.
Yeah.
I had to go.
Yeah. That's so valuable. I'm glad you made the decision. We'll get a little more into how all these dots connected in just a moment. But so now we've made the decision. Mom has said yes in her letter. And now we are in Australia. Tell us about that adjustment period. Do you recall thoughts, feelings that you had when you first landed?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was nervous and scared. So it's a 14-hour flight from LA, to Sydney. And I remember I slept a lot on the flight, but I would open my eyes and I would watch the flight, the airplane on the map. And I was watching it go over all this, blue, this expansive blue. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, going over all these like tiny little islands I'd never heard of before. I was like, wow, I'm really going out far out. Yeah. Then, arrived in Australia, and it was early July of 1997. Okay. So it was the middle of the Australian winter, and I was in Canberra, which is like one of the more like cooler, like cooler as in weather.
Gotcha.
I mean, no shade on Canberra. I mean, trust me, I will defend Canberra to the fullest, but if there's, I meant is in cooler weather, like warm coat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we landed there.
Yes, I landed there. And it's all the, the excitement and the adjustment of, oh, wait a minute, I gotta look across the street multiple times because, my automatic is going this way when the cars are coming the other way. Oh, Lord have mercy, all that kind of stuff. But orientation was run really well. What I noticed immediately when I arrived, I was there for orientation. I looked to my left and I looked to my right. And what did I see? What didn't I see?
Yeah. No one that looked like you, I'm sure.
Hello. Yeah, girl. So there was one sister who was there.
Okay.
And she was from Spelman College.
Okay.
So our eyes locked from across the room. And I had a suspicion that I probably would be one of the few Black students there, because at my, kind of pre-departure orientation meetings, I didn't see anyone, and none of my friends were going abroad. So it very much was like, okay, gulp, well, I want to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it. I was the only African-American person. So I stayed on campus.
Okay.
I stayed in a residence hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in and of itself was a fantastic experience and a great way, to kind of quickly meet Australians and form those friendships. So that was really nice.
Yeah, that's great. And how long was your program? A semester or a year?
It was a semester.
Semester. Okay, great. Good. And do you remember any particular, I guess we'll take the pit and the high point. So any really challenging things and how you overcame those, and then a highlight that you remember just still to this day?
Okay. Pit would be, so I kept a journal, and I could see, like, after my kind of honeymoon phase around like that 6-7 week mark, started to kind of like decline a little bit. So, definitely that. But once I began to kind of pull out of that, what I noticed is that the friendships that I was beginning to make were deepening.
Mm.
And so friends, so I stayed in John the 23rd College, they call it college, it was residence hall, started inviting me to come home with them on the weekends.
Oh, nice.
That dip started becoming right up. And then, I'm gonna spill just a little tea here, on Stamp podcast. I did have a boyfriend.
Oh, that's going to be part 2 of our
that I met, I think probably like a couple weeks into my study abroad.
Oh, right.
Experience. Really, really, really nice, really, really nice guy named Travis. And, we'd hang out all the time. I met his friends. We go, cruising around. So that's like, I would say in terms of like the collectively, the greatest experience that I had were the friendships that I made while I was there. And because that's just, stay with me. Will stay with me forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. One of our recent episodes was with someone I met when I was teaching in China. So it really is amazing. The types of people that you'll meet just literally from all over the world, right? Because there's other students who are coming there to study abroad as well. So it's nice to have those international connections now. So we are going to jump ahead. I want to know, though, first, do you have any tips or advice for students who may be thinking about this process, or perhaps they've already started their application, getting a jump start on that $1,000 prize I heard about? That's exciting.
Exactly.
For any tips or advice you could offer the students, and in particular, maybe those students who may feel a little hesitant navigating some of their personal identities abroad. So whether that's race, ability level, et cetera.
Absolutely. Those are really great questions, Charis. And, a couple of immediate things come to mind. First and foremost is taking a deep breath and not being afraid to ask for help or ask questions. I think, far too often, and I'm guilty of this, as well. I think, I should know this, or, I don't want to bother somebody. Bother somebody, or ask those questions, because people, I think what students may not initially realize, people who work in study abroad in this field, my awesome colleagues at ISA, we are here because we love this work, and we are here to serve. We are here to help you. And so we want all your questions. We want to talk to you, because we've been blessed to have these experiences, and we believe in paying it forward. So that's like the biggest one, I would say. Secondly to that, there's so much information available now, as far as, hey, there's the Stamped, podcast, for example, but there's, of course, YouTube, and, we have alumni, ambassadors who studied abroad that we can, connect students with. And so there is someone who wants to talk to you.
Yeah, 100%. You never tire of talking about your time abroad.
No, not at all.
Never, no matter how long ago it was.
Exactly. I had a chance to hear Candace and Colton and Becky, in the previous session, kind of talking about like, hey, we've got this money, you got to, come out. And so I would tell my students, so I used to be a study abroad advisor at UT Knoxville. And I used to tell my students, I'd say, hey, if you apply for this scholarship, then, there's a percentage that you will actually get it. But if you don't apply, I will guarantee this, right? Guaranteed. Absolutely. So put your step out.
Yeah, those are great tips. So for those who are listening again, we want you to ask all the questions. And whether that's through your contacts at ISA or through your university's study abroad office, global engagement office, we want you to ask all those questions and then certainly give yourself a shot and apply for those funds. That's great. Thank you. So we're going to scoot a little further along the journey.
I'm scooting on the water.
Me too. I'm in Singapore. So Singapore right now. So one of the things we're really trying to do at STAMP this year is to be a bit more intentional about taking a look at careers within international education. We certainly want to highlight the experiences of our Black students and international education professionals about the actual study abroad opportunity. But one thing that we've noticed is that people are really interested in the story about kind of how you got to work in this field. This isn't in the list of things students or that's rattled off. You can be a teacher, lawyer, study abroad advisor. Nobody says that. And so we want them to begin to say those things. And so we're going to dive a little bit into your journey. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, most kiddos, when they're growing up, they don't say, I want to be a study abroad advisor, yeah, it's not known. But, once you kind of step into the space, you're like, hey, wait a minute, this is pretty cool.
Very cool.
So, yeah. So for me, personally, I had a career, not an epiphany, but I would say clarity.
Okay.
When I was studying abroad in Australia, and I realized that I wanted to work on a college campus.
Mm.
I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but boy, oh boy, did I love this international thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I came back to USC, I leveraged my experience to get a job as an international peer advisor in the International Student Scholars Office. So that's kind of like the sister office to study abroad, if you will. So receiving international students coming to the United States.
Yeah.
That was an awesome job. It was awesome. Did a lot of programming. We're cruising around LA, so like International Diners Club and all sorts of fun stuff. But that was really the jumping off point for me into a career in the international education space. And then when I went to graduate school at Maryland, I did a couple of practicums. One of those was in the GW Study Abroad office. So shout out to GW. Thank you for that. Appreciate that experience.
Yeah.
But then, Charis, and I was actually listening to your earlier podcast with your colleague that you met in China, I mean, teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me that, so after I finished grad school, I went to Venezuela and taught English for a year.
Nice.
Yeah. And then when I came back, I was a study abroad advisor at UT Knoxville for 5 years, and then moved to DC and worked for NAFSA, our professional association, and then stepped out a little bit and worked on the critical language scholarship program. Working with students in that way, and then went back into higher ed to work at Maryland for another 4 years. And then I made the transition to working with education abroad, organizations or study abroad providers. So semester C, and then ISA into World Strides. So that's like Malaika's kind of, or this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm in the water, so I can do this.
Yeah, I love those experiences just because I think the global understanding of folks who work in this industry is that they have some type of international experience, whether that be study abroad like you. I taught abroad in China. And really for me, it was actually a course that I took at East Carolina University on cross-cultural communications. And I did a project about minority participation in study abroad programs and thought, I don't know, I like this area of education. Like I could get down with this. So, we come at it from all different angles, but it's nice to kind of hear the diversity of backgrounds within this industry. So very cool. Yeah. So now in your current role, where did that shift take place? I imagine that aspects of this were already, with you and embedded in the things that you did, but when did you say, I want to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically in international education? How did that happen?
Yes, ma'am. So actually, Charis, similar to you, for me, it really kind of started or was solidified by doing some research. Okay. So when I mentioned the shout out to GW, so that was summer of 2000 when I was an intern there, graduate intern. And the best thing that I did there, and this was the brainchild of Latasha Malone, who was then the study abroad advisor at GW, and she was my mentor. She said, I was working on a project to create a brochure for underrepresented students, because that was me. I'm like, this is my experience. I want to, pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
Latasha said, hey, Malaika, why don't we survey or pull together a small group of students who applied to study abroad but withdrew? Like, I don't know what happened to them. I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. So it was a warm summer evening. We ordered some pizzas and we had about 6 students show up. And we spent the next hour and a half, 2 hours just talking. And that moment, that experience, like forever changed me because the stories that came out from that experience, listening to the students. I remember one young lady, for example, said that she was all set to go to Japan, but she just needed to get a chest x-ray in order to get her student visa. Well, she didn't have health insurance at the time. And it would have cost, I think at that time, $300. I mean, something like whatever, 2000, the year $2,000, whatever that was, right?
Yeah.
But she didn't have it. And because she didn't have it, didn't have health insurance, she was unable to get the visa and was unable to go. And that just broke my heart right there.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I advocate for is, it's kind of like the old MTV saying, like, you think you know, but you have no idea. The story is just really asking those questions to figure out what's happening on our campuses with our students, because I think we'd really be surprised at some of the responses that we got back. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So how has your work continued to evolve in this space?
Sure. So up until just a few years ago, none of my positions title-wise really, I think, captured the kind of diversity, equity, inclusion work that I was doing or had done. And I name that intentionally because there are so many people who are engaging actively in the work in this space, but their job titles might not reflect that, or their job descriptions might not reflect that. And like me, they probably are doing this work outside of, well, I was doing this work outside of my quote unquote normal job responsibilities. But because I put in that extra time, that extra effort, it was noticed and it was recognized. And so I was constantly looking for opportunities to increase access to students, be it creating a course at Maryland where I was taking students to the Dominican Republic to do service learning, or if it was, back at UT Knoxville, applying for grants outside the university to create faculty workshops so that they could, better support historically underrepresented students going abroad, et cetera. So I was doing this work at ISA, and I just, my colleagues recognize that, and I really want to lift up Jennifer Costa, who's the general manager at ISA, because it was Jennifer and my then supervisor, Mark Galovic, who said, hey, Malaika, we love what you're doing. You're making a real impact in the field, and we want to hold space and lift this work up and amplify it. And so that's when in 2019, my position became a full-time position for doing diversity and inclusion work across our higher education division within World Strides.
Okay, I love that. I remember getting the announcement and I was like, yes, this is awesome. From that VIE conference alone, I really just looked up to you and the work that you have accomplished in this space. And so, I mean, efforts definitely recognized and well-deserved. So congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate that, friend. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think to round us out, could you talk to us a bit about what your goals are for ISA by World Strides, hopes for like the future evolution of DEI and international education? It's kind of a double whammy there.
Sure. So lots of great questions that you just posed. I would say just sort of starting with my current context, working within World Strides. So it's exciting now that I have a great opportunity of working kind of across the entire World Strides family and portfolio of programs, being able to tap into what's happening, say, in the kind of K-12 space, looking at synergy, what's happening in higher education, for, graduate programs, et cetera. So there are so many talented people within this organization who are passionate, who are skilled, and who are actively engaging in diversity, equity, inclusion work. And so what I see my role as doing is really looking at ways that we can better create synergy across different spaces so that we're not reinventing the work, because why? Right. But two, what's really exciting about that is I like to say that diversity, equity, inclusion melts silos. So what ends up happening is that you have folks from all across the organization, and you see this at universities, at institutions as well, working together, for the common betterment of the organization. So that great work is happening right now. So we're doing a lot of work internally because DEI starts at home. Starts at home. And if what did my girl Lauryn Hill say? How you gonna win if you ain't right within, right? so
I'm dating this too, Malaika. Okay. Drop a smiley face if you know that song.
yeah. Lift up the smiley face. It's a classic. It's all good. Hey, you know what? Listen, what do we talk about in DEI? We want to show up and be our full authentic selves. Well, this is me. This is me. Kind of silly, kind of throwback, but
I love it.
Yeah. And then Charis, sorry, the other point is, the other piece rather is externally, how are we supporting our university partners? How are we directly supporting students? And then how are we actively contributing thought leadership to the education abroad field? Because again, we're all about, I think, was it rising tide lifts all ships or boats or something like that? So we really do believe wholeheartedly in paying it forward and by being good community members. So.
Yeah. I love that. I know we wanted to allocate some time. I don't know if any questions have come in yet. We can allocate a little bit of time otherwise while we're gathering those perhaps. Just wondering, any final comments per se for students who may be thinking about, I have two actually, I think. So first we'll go with the students. So any final comments for students that you think just want to really drive it home for them?
Yes. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. We believe in you. You're beautiful, and all we want to do is support you in your dreams of studying abroad.
And then how about international education offices who are, really interested in lifting up these stories, their voices of students, and or getting deeper involved in this DEI work?
Absolutely. What's really encouraging, Charis, is that, this past year has been monumental for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
June 2020 was truly a watershed moment, I think, not just for our country, but for the world. And what encourages me is that I am seeing and hearing a lot of colleagues. There's awakening, an awakening of sort of like challenging assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of reimagining what education abroad could look like, and also looking at our own offices. So again, taking care of home first and saying, hey, does the diversity in my office or my staff accurately reflect the beautiful diversity that is here, at my institution? If so, great. Tell other people what you're doing.
Right.
Right. But if not, okay, well, we've got a starting point. And there are a lot of people, including, my organization, who actively support our university colleagues, in their own sort of respective DEI journeys.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I know students probably throughout today have been told how to connect with you, but just one more time, I think it never hurts. And plus, we hope this will live on the Stamped podcast platform. So we want to make sure we know how folks can connect with you all as well. Would you share? How would you like them to get in touch with you?
Sure. So my email address is mserrano@worldstrides.com. But I'm also active on LinkedIn and love making new connections and new friends. Isn't that right, Candace?
It's absolutely right. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Well, I just also want to take a moment to thank you all and the folks at ISA by World Strides who made this conversation possible in this live format. It's the first live show for Stamped. So this has been a fun new adventure for me too. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed the conversation. You all definitely had my wheels turning as I thought about my own experience abroad. Charis, I think you mentioned that you never get tired of talking about it, right? And I think about the way in which you and I sort of met by a chance encounter and have had the opportunity to come back together and to continue on this work, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to lift up a question for those of us who are watching and who may be listening to the podcast with regard to our families, right? Malika, you sort of touched on this a little bit with regard to that fear that students might face, but we don't think about the fear of others because, as we know, safety is not defined the same for everyone, and then there are other varying levels with regard to identities. Externally and internally, right? And so I'm wondering if, for both of you all, because I myself am a former expat and I have my own views, but I'm wondering from you all if there are any tips that you would give to students who may be looking to sort of facilitate that conversation with their parents, right, or their caregivers or their loved ones, partners, so on and so forth, with regard to what it would look like for them to go abroad. In the future. So
yeah, excellent question. Malaika, would you like to go first as our guest, and then I'll
Sure. Yeah, I'll be brief. Candace, great question. The first thing that actually that comes to mind really is getting a better understanding and unpacking, what might be behind the fear. And oftentimes, when we're referring to or thinking about family and close friends, it's out of concern and love. And so I think that by starting and situating sort of the questions of the conversation from that place, then there's a dialogue that can occur. In addition to that, if students are anticipating that there may be some nervousness or fears or concerns or what have you, already having kind of at the ready some information, because information, knowledge is power. To be able to lift that up and provide that can really help put family members at ease. Charis?
Yeah, great. Kind of along the lines of the first note I jotted down was kind of bringing them in on that information process, that information gathering stage. So, for example, the ISA by World Strides website is a great platform that students could explore with their parents or friends, whomever may have concerns. I've heard that a lot on the podcast, that while the students themselves may not have been worried about traveling abroad, their family, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, whomever had lots of thoughts about it, particularly if there had not been this trend of travel in their family experience. And so I think bringing them in on the information gathering stages is important, and keeping them informed of each of those steps is really key. And then the other thing that I've noticed in interviewing the students is that communication was also a large factor in what that fear looked like. So it was, how am I going to know that you're okay? How am I going to know that you got there? What's your days like, et cetera. And so I found that students who have created like a clear communication plan up front, like we're probably not going to talk every day, but I will let you know that I've arrived and kind of keep you updated. And I've had students do that in a myriad of ways. So one was simply through their phone plan. It worked out naturally for them. It was pretty easy. Where they were in Mexico, it was already a part of their phone program. So no problems there. Other students actually, as a part of their class assignments, created blogs. And so they gave the family members the blog link. And so they could check up there to figure out what's going on. They could kind of share in the journey with their students. So whatever that looks like for you and your family or friends, I'd say work out a communication plan that seems reasonable before going abroad.
I love that. I love that blog idea too, just simply because it gives you a unique way to document that experience, right?
Yeah.
To have something to look back on. Malaika, you mentioned the journaling, right? And being able to actually see the trends in how you felt and how you navigated that. So I love that. Thank you both so much for joining us and for sharing your insights. We're so excited to have Stamped here. If students want to get in contact with you, Charis, and for those of you who are listening, if you want more of the conversations that are happening on the Stamped podcast, where can they reach you? How can they find out more?
Yes, thank you so much. So Stamped is housed on the Anchor platform. You can reach us at anchor.fm/stamped. But we're also distributed on all major podcasting platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker are some of the top ones where our Stamped fans like to listen to us. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help in any way I can. So I just, again, appreciate the opportunity to share the stories. And I thank those who have shared their stories with us. So we hope that they are as impactful to others as they have been for me. So thanks.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, and Malaika, can we sign off the same way? I want to invite you to sign off the same way for our live podcast that we do with all of our non-live podcasts. All right.
Problem.
So with that, everybody, thank you again for listening.
You've been stamped.
Thank you.
Thanks, Candace.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So And thank you again to everyone who's in the audience who's still here with us, ready to dig into conversations about how you can go abroad with ISA and just getting the opportunity to get to know us on the back end. All right. Again, we do have virtual opportunities available if you are in a situation where you can't go abroad right now. Um, let's take a look at Alex Gaskins, who's one of our students from Stevens University in New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Alex. I want to take you through an overview of my internship period with Smartable. Are you ready? Let's go. This summer was a really great experience. I got to enhance my professional and personal background altogether. But because of the circumstances, it was a little bit different than how a normal internship would go. You see, because this was a virtual internship, I relied entirely on my laptop for pretty much everything. In a way, this was a good thing, as the main purpose of the internship was working with programming, and more specifically, app development. You see, Smartable is a technology company based out of Alicante, located in southeastern Spain, with their main focus being towards the Internet of Things, which deals with data being broadcasted between different devices. A concept that they have recently been focusing on involves digital nomads. A digital nomad is someone who works remotely, as well as with a very independent lifestyle. These people are often freelancers, and they rely on telecommunication platforms to work. The idea of being a digital nomad has become more popular throughout the world, including in Spain, and Smartable has decided to embrace this trend by designing an app that allows digital nomads to connect with one another and collaborate on projects. A classic example of how this works could involve a programmer who needs the help of a graphic designer to effectively construct a website. After learning about digital nomads, they informed me that because I had experience with developing apps, I was a good candidate for constructing one of the digital nomad-oriented apps called Nomad Party. As I stated before, the goal of this application is to allow digital nomads to effectively collaborate with one another. While I really liked the idea, my experience with app development was still quite limited, and I knew that this would be a challenge from the start. Another challenge was the language barrier. Even though my teammates knew some English, my Spanish was basically non-existent. But despite this, I was more than willing to put in the effort to overcome these obstacles. In the beginning, it was a bit rough trying to communicate, but everyone was very nice, and as time progressed, I learned some Spanish, which was helpful. In terms of app development, I was learning a lot of it as I worked, as I had never dealt with a program this advanced before. A great tool that I used a lot was YouTube, as well as Google. Unfortunately, my teammates didn't know a lot about the Swift programming language, but they were very supportive of my work and progress. From this situation, I learned how to adapt quickly to new situations, as well as how to manage my time effectively, all while still learning at the same time. I think that this will definitely prepare me for life after college and future jobs, as I'm sure that I won't always be prepared for every project that I'm handed. Overall, my greatest success that I gained from my internship was that I was able to effectively develop an iOS application that performed almost all of the tasks that were requested. I also was able to become closer with my teammates, to a point where even after my internship has ended, they want me to stay connected with the company. However, some notable failures were that I did not learn as much Spanish as I had hoped, and I feel bad that I could not communicate better. I also took longer to develop the application than originally anticipated. All in all, I think this internship was a great experience that I will always remember. It really changed my life, both personally and professionally, as I was able to learn how work is done in a country besides America and how they communicate, which is important as we are all connected in today's world. And I know that I will be working with other countries in the future, perhaps as vendors or clients. I was also able to increase my knowledge of app development to a point where I feel like I can now proudly call myself an app developer. So I am truly grateful that Smartable has given me this opportunity, and I look forward to staying connected with them in the future. Thanks, Smartable.
All right. So, again, thank you so much for those of you all who are still here with us from the beginning until now. If you are just now entering the chat, make sure that you take advantage of the opportunity to win that $1,000 flight voucher to anywhere in the world. If you've already registered for the event, then you are entered. If you haven't, you should definitely register for the event. Let us know that you're here, okay? If you haven't already, introduce yourself, telling us your name, your major, and which university you're at. And last but not least, definitely watch out for those additional opportunities to gain another opportunity to be entered into the raffle. All right. So we have one more opportunity for you all. If you haven't already, hop on over to Instagram and follow us on at ISA Abroad, and DM your answer to the raffle question. I'll give you all a few minutes to pull out your phones. Go ahead over to ISA Abroad on Instagram, follow us, and then hit up our DMs with the answer to the next question. So, name that country. Where is this? Looking at this cityscape, tell me where you think this is. Hop in our DMs and let me know. Definitely don't write the answer in the chat. All right. And I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the video that was just played about the virtual internships. I love that video, and I want to encourage any of you all who are considering virtual opportunities to definitely take advantage of that. And remember, we do have global ambassadors, some of which who have done different types of programs, who can answer your questions if you are interested in that type of opportunity. Going abroad doesn't have to only be about being in the classroom. We have opportunities for you to intern, opportunities to research. You can participate in service learning projects, as well as we do have a section for where students can stay connected to their faith called Veritas, which is a Christian study abroad. You do not have to be Christian to participate. It is simply a way for you to stay connected to your faith, which is something that follows us everywhere. All right. So let's take a look at a video as we get ready to switch gears and have a conversation about the dangers of the single narrative. All right, I hope you all enjoyed that video. Just giving you a little bit of background on ISA. I also want to mention one more time that ISA is running a promotion for Valentine's Day. It's called Valentine's Day Do-Over, where you get the opportunity to start your application and apply for free. So it has been extended until the end of today. So that means opportunity to skip over that $95 deposit. All right. And again, it is Black History Month. And as we saw from the conversation on the STEM podcast with Malaika and Charis, we're definitely wanting to lift up the stories from our students. So right here we have Miss Dominique Braun. She had an opportunity to study abroad with us in 2020. And as you can see here, she says, our goal is to provide a safe, our goal is to provide a safe space for our Black people to leave and to create and learn and explore. So it's another example of how ISA is focusing on trying to help more students make history abroad. Okay, also another plug, I mentioned before, if you are a student who is in a position where maybe you can't go abroad right now, but you still want to have an opportunity to really develop those skills from home and have the opportunity to build your international network, consider doing a global remote internship or a remote learning program where you can, have that exchange just from home. These opportunities tend to also be a little bit more cost conscious, but you still get that same connection like you would if you were to be abroad. All right, so I'm so excited now for our next student panel where we're going to talk about unpacking your narrative. And I want to go ahead and invite we're going to talk about the student panel, and then we also have our session on the danger of a single narrative. And then we have some really cool campfire stories about some of the crazy things that have happened abroad. So I want to go ahead and invite Zach Muskin on the stage again to help us to facilitate the conversation on unpacking your narrative, as well as our lovely global ambassadors. Go ahead and unmute and reveal yourselves. Thank you. All right, Zach, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Candace. And Alexander and Andrew, if y'all could come off mute and get those cameras up and going. Hey, Andrew. And
hey, how's it going?
Good. And Alexander, if you could, let's see, get the camera going and unmute. Since we don't have a ton of time, we can go ahead and get started. We may have a couple more people joining us at some point, but just to kind of get started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, your name, where you go to school, what study abroad program you went on. Actually, I guess I could get started as well. For those of you that don't know me, I was on a little bit earlier. I'm Zach Muskin. I'm the director of our alumni relations department, as well as our student outreach team. Been with ISA for quite a bit of time, a little over 7 years. I've worked in a lot of different areas, but love working with our alum. Love post-program engagement, all that fun stuff, and really talking about those experiences. So Andrew, why don't you go ahead and do a little intro.
Nice, yeah, for sure. So my name is Andrew. I graduated from Guilford College, which is in Greensboro, North Carolina, in May of 2020. So I was a COVID graduate, you could say. And I studied abroad with ISA in Valparaiso, Chile, during the semester of 2019. So that was my junior year. And I was a double major as an undergrad in Spanish and psychology.
Very cool. Hey, Alexander, good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, we're just doing some intros. So again, if you could
Perfect timing.
Tell us your name, university, and just the program that you went on.
Yes, my name is Alex Azar. I studied at Clark University for my bachelor's degree, and And in 2019, the spring, I went to Leuven, Belgium, the Euro Scholars, which is a program sponsored by ISA.
Great. Well, thanks for the intro. I'm just gonna jump right in and kind of start with some questions here. But I wanted to ask, and we'll have both of you answer. But what role did identity play in selecting a location for your study abroad experience? Alex, if you want to get us started.
Yes, thank you. Well, for me, it was about the program in particular, the Euro Scholars program, which is facilitated by ISA. What's great about the program is that it's hands-on, so you work directly with a professor on a team on a thesis. So my classmates with me on the program were all scientists, so they work directly in a lab with a team on a project, which they then carried over actually. And in addition to the classwork, there was actually an ideas competition. So the Euro Scholars program had this competition where everybody from all the schools teamed up. And then in particular about Belgium, it's an English speaking country. It's really, I love medieval history and European history. So it's, if you want to go to Europe, you can't find a better place to start.
Great. And Andrew, what role did identity play in you selecting your program, or maybe not selecting certain places?
Sure, yeah. So my identity didn't play a huge role in where I chose to study abroad. Valparaiso was important to me as a Spanish major, so I knew I wanted to study abroad in Latin America. And so, I had some friends at my college who had done this same program and, really recommended it. So that was mostly kind of why I chose the program. But, my identity definitely played a role in kind of the research that I did, ahead of time before, after deciding to go to Chile and before actually arriving, right? So, researching things related to kind of like the queer history, as far as, LGBTQ rights in Chile, different laws and societal attitudes, all of that was important to me and important factors, in my process of studying abroad.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, learn about the place you're going to go before you go, right? It can impact and have some, different spaces where it might take you somewhere else. You find some of those things. So kind of back to the original question, did you have any certain expectations from some of the research that you did, before going to Valparaiso? And did those expectations get met?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I had read sort of about kind of the general political kind of spectrum in Chile, and that, it is kind of more one of the progressive countries in South America and in Latin America as a whole. Still largely influenced by the Catholic Church. And so I guess, those, but I knew also, that Valparaiso specifically was a pretty progressive city, where, the arts scene has kind of flourished for a long time. So I expected to kind of be able to find some community there. But I was actually really surprised at just how supportive everyone around me was, especially like the host family, and the other students who were living in the house that I was living in. I was living in with a bunch of other Chilean students. And so just the accepting environment was definitely a pleasant surprise.
That's great. I love it. I actually got a chance to spend a little bit of time in Chile not too long ago. So
nice.
Very, very cool place. And for you, Alex, what were some of the resources or some of the things that you used to get a better understanding, or maybe what were some of the expectations you had going into your program?
Well, I really underestimated the cycling. I really had no plans for that. I was so, like, when I landed, like, the town I was in is a college town, separated. It's called Leuven, and it's separated from Brussels with a train. So I thought there'd be Ubers. I thought there'd be cars. There's no rental pro apps. They don't have Uber or Lyft in Europe, and I had no idea about that. And then I realized how prevalent bicycles were. So that was definitely the biggest culture shock for me, especially like the first time I went to the supermarket. I bought a big box of stuff and I'm like, where's my car? So it took a little bit to get adjusted to, but the best part about it is practice, because typically, I have like anxiety. So like, I like to say, oh, I'm not going to do something because I don't think I can do it. When you're abroad, you can't like go back home. You have to get on a plane all over again. So now it's like, okay, well, how bad can it be? So it really gives you a chance to challenge yourself. And it's not just about like succeeding, it's about giving yourself enough time to practice too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think study abroad is a huge piece of practice for your life moving forward. I think that's a great way of explaining it. Um, this session is called Unpacking Your Narrative, right? So I would like to ask both of y'all, were there specific times or what kind of support or resources did you have on site to help kind of unpack your narrative? The ISA office, was there, roommates, things like that. Can you speak a little bit more on that? You can give us a start, Andrew.
Yeah, for sure. So we had an amazing team in Valparaiso of on-site ISA staff who were so helpful, with any need you could imagine, right? As a student abroad, but particularly with that piece in kind of unpacking your narrative and what it means to bring your identity to a new place, a new culture. And I participated in the service learning program. So I was volunteering during my time studying abroad in a local public health clinic in Valparaiso. And so included in that service learning program were kind of weekly meetings where we would talk about, how these kinds of things were impacting our work in the community. And our coordinator for that program, she did such an amazing job facilitating those discussions and really allowing us to feel safe and comfortable, kind of opening up about, what it was like to volunteer in the community, in a new place, and kind of how, we were able to recognize the privilege, that we would bring into these spaces, and, other aspects of our identity and how that impacted our work as well. So the ISA staff was definitely an amazing support that I used a lot during my time.
Love it. And big shout out to service learning for sure.
For sure.
And Alex, obviously your experience in Euro Scholars is quite a bit different than a lot of our other students. So in regards to support and things like that, what are some of the areas that you can speak about?
Well, yeah, the big challenge about the Euro Scholars is that it's a very small program. There were 3 other students in it in total. And then my project didn't have a team. So, for me, the challenge was how do I connect being like the one person basically. And what I did is I signed up to be a blogger for the ISA website. And I wrote an article, within the first month I was there, just about my identity and what was it like and the challenges of traveling for the first couple of weeks. And I shared it to my friends at the school and it spread in the whole community. Like people approached me in the community from Europe and they're like, we read this ISA blog and we thought it was like really interesting and we really appreciated your perspective. And even like 2 months later, somebody commented that they read the article. So it was really great how that spread across the town and helped me integrate with my the rest of the community.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we have a lot of opportunities also for students when they're abroad to connect with staff, to write blogs, keep connecting with other students and engaging. So if you haven't checked out our blog, definitely do so. It's the ISA Today blog, and I'm sure we can get someone to put that in the comment section. But upon y'all's return from your programs, how did, or if any, did your academic or personal goals change? And how have you kind of processed your experience since you've been back? Andrew, go ahead and get us started.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a big question. So let's think. So, I think definitely studying abroad gave me a lot of perspective on life, and study abroad is really like a time like no other, right? And like in the sense that every moment is just like full of excitement, that is generated by you being in this new place and being around these new people who are all experiencing the same thing as you, right? So that it's all, even if you're just like going out for a walk with some friends, like that's like super exciting. And so definitely kind of coming back to the US and kind of challenging some of my routines and just what I had got caught up in, and just kind of prioritizing my tasks, and just realizing that I can bring some of that excitement right back to daily life in the US. So I think that was pretty important for me in coming back to the US. And then definitely, you know, I felt like my Spanish improved so much while I was living in Chile. So, you know, that's something that I wanted to continue being really active with and just not let it slip. You know, when I got back, obviously as a Spanish major, I had taken a lot of courses already, but I just wanted to, you know, full steam ahead and just keep going to hold on to that momentum. And processing, I think, you know, it's kind of a lifelong endeavor to process even just a semester abroad. And, you know, I'm coming up almost exactly on 2 years since I left for Chile. And, you know, I'm definitely, every day, you know, I have reminders from my time there, and I process kind of a new piece of it, or I remember something new. And I think there's layers that you work through with processing. So it definitely takes some time, but it's really nice to have, you know, some perspective and be able to look back on those nice moments, you know, especially in times of a pandemic right now, when for a lot of us, you know, travel is not really an option at the moment.
Yeah, I can confirm, I'm still processing, and it's been a lot more than 2 years after my program. So can confirm that continues. How about for you, Alex, upon your return, personal academic goals and kind of processing, did any of that stuff change, or where are you at with that?
Yeah, I think everything changed, honestly, for me, because like I came through the program, and not only did I have such a great time, you know, being independent and having like being able to just be an active member of the community, I kind of realized like what I really underestimated was how much of a community ISA is. And I also had like another scholarship which had its own big community as well. So just I didn't realize, like in January, I got invited to like, it's called the Gilman Scholarship. So they had a seminar in Austin, Texas. So I went, and that's where ISA's headquarters is. So I was able to go and visit the headquarters and meet everyone in person. And then I did this like little career fair, and I kind of realized like how interesting it is. Like intercultural communication is such an important part of our lives and just the greater community's lives. So I went to school at Clark preparing to be a lawyer, and to me, just, you know, too many exams, and, you know, I just wasn't ready for that. So being able to accepted into this community and just be able to participate in events like this, it's great.
Yeah, and we're happy to have you. So you mentioned, you know, that's a big question. Well, I have another big question for you. And it's how would you suggest a student, for all the students that are watching now and those that will watch in the future, be bold in taking control of their narrative while abroad, or before abroad, or after being abroad? Alex, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, it's I think that like what I understood was like going to Leuven. I was the only person in the town who knew who I was. So my actions, so I was defined, my reputation and my like time there it was my responsibility. So I was defined by my actions and how I treated people. And luckily I was well received. And that is just a universal tool for everybody. I mean, wherever you go, it doesn't matter, you know, it could be from Boston to Providence. It still matters like who you are, your conduct in what you do is, you know, how people treat you and how people perceive you. And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned traveling abroad. And I think just learning to be conscious of that is such a great asset, because you know, it gives you a lot more agency over who you are. Not who you are, you'll always be who you are, but like how you're able to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I really like that. And you, Andrew, how would you, how would you suggest a student be bold, you know, in their experience and going through that?
Sure, yeah, it's a great question. And I think, you know, part of the answer lies right there in the question, is that be bold, right? You know, and I think a lot of it for me was recognizing like, all right, you know, I have X many months here and then that's it, you know, and maybe I'll be able to come back and visit one day, right? But I need to make the most of this time that I have, you know, here and in the now. And so I think, being bold and reaching out to, friends on your ISA program, or people you don't know yet, who you've just arrived with, and saying, hey, I saw this restaurant, do you want to go check it out with me? And that does take courage. It takes boldness, but those bold choices, are really going to pay off in a really big way when you're abroad. I think even more so than the bold choices that we have to make here in the places that we grow up and that we live in. And I think as far as your narrative as well, it's important to balance being bold with staying safe, right? And so, definitely be aware of the context that you're in. For me, choosing to come out of the closet to the people I was living with, that was the right decision for me. But, it might not be the right decision for everyone who studies abroad, right? And so, recognizing that there's a difference certainly between being bold and being, reckless. So finding that line for sure. And then just be bold and just do it, because you're only going to be there for so long, and you don't want to get back to the US and think, wow, I just wish I had done X, Y, or Z, so.
Yeah, no, I thank you both for sharing that. And on the stance of being bold is also just asking, right? So sometimes it's hard to ask those questions pre-program, but we're here at ISA to help with those questions. We want to connect you with other alumni that might share a similar identity, things like that. So I'm sure we can also pop our connect with alumni form in the chat. And if anyone has some of those questions or wants to connect about really anything, know that we're here to help and hopefully to find someone that you can connect with, pre-program, during program, and post-program. So thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So I want to hop in here really quickly before we close off, because Andrew, where'd you go? Don't leave yet. First of all, I have to say, this has been a really interesting conversation. I'm just listening in. And I think what I'm actually really excited about is that we often, within study abroad, we're talking about who actually goes abroad, right? And I find that a lot of guys have been afraid to go alone, or they feel like they're too busy, and they're rationalizing like why they aren't going. So one, I'm excited that you two are here just to share your perspectives about your own identities and what that's been like for you. But two, thinking about the fact that both of you all have gone on non-traditional programs, right? Like most students are going to study, but Andrew, I think you said that you went on a service learning trip. And Alex, you said that you are Euro scholars, which to me is one of ISA's best kept secrets, because I think that, it's a program that allows you to really dig into the research. And so lifting up what it is that you do, Zach, I'm wondering, we talked a lot about what it was like for you on the ground in your respective countries, right? But what was it like for you all coming home and managing that reverse culture shock with regard to your new identity? I like to talk a lot about the shift that students experience. I studied abroad with ISA Morocco, and I absolutely shifted. I came home and I was like, whoa, okay, like I'm different now. So I want both of you all, if you will, to speak a little bit about that. I don't know if you want to talk about ISA's role in that. Don't feel pressure to, but just what was it like for you managing that reverse culture shock? Maybe Andrew could start.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, that's honestly a great question, because I feel like talking about the transition to coming back is so often left out, right, of this narrative or the conversation around study abroad. And for me, it was really challenging. You talk a lot about culture shock and, when you arrive in country and what that's going to mean for you and how you're going to adjust and all of that. So you feel pretty prepared for that. But you don't really feel prepared to have to readjust to, living in a place where you had already lived for 18, 19, 20, 21 years of your life. But that's a reality that a lot of students are going to face. And it's definitely a reality that I faced as well. And, it was challenging. You miss so many things about where you were, the people that you met, and the life that you you lived there. And so, you know, I think one of the best things is to, you know, be able to process and use whatever kind of techniques or strategies are helpful for you there, you know, whether it's kind of looking at some photos to reminisce, or, you know, journaling, or, you know, channeling that energy through, you know, productive projects like blogging about your experiences. You know, I think that finding, you know, kind of a productive way to process that is helpful. But I think keeping that conversation going about, you know, what is it like to come back and to readjust is really important.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was the toughest part, because like when I got back, I was still convinced that I was going back to Europe like the next weekend. Like for the like 6 months later, I thought, all right, I'm gonna be back in Europe and this is just a dream and I'll be back. And that took a long time to kind of adjust. It was like a candle on both ends, because you had to adjust to not seeing people, and then you had to get adjusted to seeing people again in America, and then back home, and then back at your exchange, you had to kind of conciliate that, okay, I'm not going to see these people probably for a while, and you have to just like move on from that. I mean, not move on, you have to move on from the idea that you're just going to go back to the town, because you know, what helped is that you know, some of the people, like, it's just like keeping in contact with everyone. You know, I think it's a good idea, because then you're able to just keep it going, keep texting, and then just let it fall off organically, because I'm in contact with people, you know, like some of the friends I had when I left, I don't talk to anymore. And then some of the random people I met there, we're still talking every day. And I think that's just how life is. It's just, you know, like definitely I was like, and then the other part too is that the junior year, the problem with that is just that you have another year of your obligations at the school when you come back. So I was definitely I was pretty unhappy, to be honest, that I was like, oh, I have to still, you know, do this for another year. So I think, you know, just trying to, you know, keep in contact with everyone and just let the chips fall where they may.
Hey, Candace, pro tip on that one. If you still have a year left and you want to study abroad again, hey, go back abroad. See if you can make it work. Oh.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I definitely know for me, when I went abroad the fall semester of my senior year, and that spring semester was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle, but I ended up going back abroad again. So to Zach's point, you can always go back. You can always continue to, you know, tap your network, because once you study abroad, that's what you're doing. You've expanded your network. So I want to thank you all so much for being vulnerable and open and honest and sharing your perspectives. I'm sure that if you want, you can drop your information in the chat if people want to have more conversation with you. But thank you for unpacking your narrative with us today. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you all so much.
All right. So now we're going to go ahead and switch gears and go ahead and shift to Miss Jenny, so we can talk about Latin America and revising the single narrative.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to dive right in. So again, my name is Jenny Robinson, and I'm a regional director for ISA. This presentation came out of a collaboration that I did with a couple of advisors at the University of Florida and the University of South Florida. So really quickly, I'm going to jump to the next slide and kick us off with a quick activity. Let's see. So feel free in the chat to take your best guess at what these city centers are. So these are major city centers around the world. If you only recognize one of them, great. If you want to take your best guess at as many of them as you'd like, feel free. There's no wrong answers, really. It's just a little bit of a social experiment, so no cheating. A little bit of backstory, just while I give everyone time to do that. I studied abroad in Central and South America during my time in college. I went abroad for the first time to Costa Rica, spent a summer there with a Tico family, and really improved my Spanish. And after that experience, I was hooked. I fell in love with the language, the culture, the food, the people, everything, and was immediately planning my next trip abroad. All of the budgeting and funding tips that we talked about earlier, I definitely utilized to participate in a couple of other summer study abroad programs in Bolivia, Peru, and Argentina. So it's my favorite region of the world to talk about with students. And that's pretty much what this session is going to center around, is just some of the myths and shortcomings in the way that we talk about the region. So I'm going to take a quick peek. I see that we've had a couple people write in. Most people seem to recognize Buenos Aires, which I think tends to be the most easily recognizable. So that is 9 de Julio, la avenida in the center of Buenos Aires. It is the largest street in the world with 7 lanes of traffic going both ways. So it's pretty impressive both in the picture and in person. It looks like we have a couple other guesses. We've got someone suggesting that number 1 might be Japan, number 2 might be Italy, number 3 might be Thailand. So really quickly, I'm going to run through these. Number 1 is actually in Panama City. That is El Tornillo, or the screw. You can see by the shape of that tower that has a very unique shape that does resemble a screw. And this tower did actually win an innovation award in 2011. Number 2 is the Plaza de Armas in Lima, Peru. Again, I've had the privilege of actually being here in person, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a bustling urban space. And we will actually have our resident director joining us shortly to talk a little bit more about Peru, if anyone is interested in studying abroad there. Number 3 is El Gran Torre, the Grand Tower in Santiago, Chile. And then we already know Buenos Aires was number 4. So going on to the next slide, the question that I'm wanting to propose is, or one more back, is are these typically the images that you associate with South America? Speaking from my own experience as a recent or relatively recent college grad, these were not the images that I saw most often in study abroad marketing materials. All of the programs that I was exploring didn't really feature these urban centers. A lot more of them featured the images on the next slide. The stereotypical Machu Picchu, the indigenous dress of the indigenous cultures there, and a lot of shots of the natural scenery and things that you can do in the more rural areas of the different countries in Central and South America. So feel free to drop some words that come to mind when you see these images. I know that for most students, one of the biggest concerns for going abroad are academics and price. So speaking personally, part of my decision to go to Costa Rica for my first study abroad program was the affordability. The round trip airfare was affordable, and then the cost of living in Costa Rica, the overall program price was approachable for me. Whereas when I looked at Spain, Spain was going to take a little bit more flexibility in my budget that I just felt like I couldn't swing from my first time abroad. So what I have found, though, is it's interesting to see that enrollment in Central and South America is actually on the decline. So ignoring everything that's happened in 2020, that's a little bit of a abnormality. But up until then, study abroad had been on the rise. We had more and more students going abroad, and yet Central and South America were the only regions of the world decreasing in study abroad enrollment. So taking a quick peek at the chat, we're seeing like adventurous. When I have to talk to other students, a lot of times I get like indigenous, nature, rural, off the beaten path, those kinds of words. And so quickly switching to the next slide, these are images that I think we more frequently see associated with study abroad programs throughout Europe. And again, any thoughts, questions, descriptors that come to mind for these pictures. And the reason I'm juxtaposing these different images is to really highlight that the images that we choose to represent these regions of the world send a particular message about what you're able to do there, the quality of the academic programming, all of this stuff combined. So there's a general myth in study abroad, especially among STEM students, that they're not going to be able to study abroad because their academic needs are so specific. I would say that that belief is even more pervasive when we're looking at Central and South America. In general, I think the perception is you only go to Central or South America for Spanish immersion and service learning projects. That's where we tend to see the most enrollment. And I think that it really does a disservice to the region. All of the images that we saw on the previous slide are 100% parts of the local culture, and to miss out on them would be a mistake, but to present that as the only thing that this region of the world has to offer, I think is a mistake. So again, taking a look at the chat, we're seeing like urban, cosmopolitan, posh. At other sessions where we've had these conversations, I've seen things like developed, advanced, even civilized. People have gone so far as to say. So again, we're painting very different pictures of these regions and not maybe giving the whole perspective when talking about the variety of things that we can do in Central and South America. Moving on to the next slide. This presentation was in large part inspired by the TED Talk that Chimamanda gave back in 2009, which, over a decade ago, but it's as relevant now as ever. And what I love about this talk she gave was that she talked a lot about how our perceptions of countries and people are largely informed oftentimes by a single narrative. And, we're very busy, and a lot of times we don't take the time to question where this narrative is coming from and who is writing it. And she talks a little bit about her own experience coming to the States and being the recipient of people's perceptions that were formed by a single narrative as a Nigerian in the United States. And then she goes on to talk about how she also fell victim to this single narrative on her first visit to Mexico, and that she hadn't thought to question her understanding and perception of Mexico that she had developed through only really hearing about Mexico through the news and the immigration crisis. So I think it was a really great talk that reminds us that we are oftentimes on both sides of that coin. So moving on to the next slide, just wanted to highlight some points, these just a few out of many of, I think, the underreported contributions of the region. That we hear so much about Mexico, but hardly ever the credit it receives as the Silicon Valley of Latin America. I think Costa Rica is probably a little bit more recognizable as an international hub for environmental sustainability research. But I bet many of you don't realize that Central and South America are leading the pack with female researchers, both in STEM and the social sciences. And that the region has produced several Nobel Prize winners and Nobel Peace Prize winners. So again, the region has contributed so much beyond what we would see on the surface level in our marketing materials. So this is where I would love to bring in our resident director in Lima, Peru, Michelle McRaney. If you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at ISA in Lima.
Of course. Well, my name is Michelle. I've been working at ISA since I graduated from college. So in 1998, I started working in the Austin office. However, since 2006, I've been working in our office in Peru. Reason being that I met my Peruvian husband actually in Austin, Texas. And although I had studied abroad in France and in Mexico, I'd studied business courses in those two locations and had my own life-changing experience. When I met my Peruvian husband, who was, and all of his South American friends, I really didn't know a lot about South America. I had my own ideas of what South America would be like, and I had based them mostly on my experience in Mexico. So it was a big leap when I landed in Peru in 2006, and I've been here ever since.
Also, well, I definitely want to expand on what you had mentioned. What were some of your expectations or perceptions of Peru before actually moving there and living there for a bit, and how did that from what you actually experienced?
Well, before I even got there, I had what a lot of I've seen in my students, a lot of expectations that Peru was mostly the Andes, the mountains and Llamas and Machu Picchu. And when I first got there, I got to Lima, it was this large city, over 10 million people. It was the capital, and it was located on the Pacific coast, on the ocean. So I wasn't expecting that. And all of the Peruvians that I were meeting in Lima were very into surfing, into the gastronomy, into food, seafood, ceviche. So I really wasn't expecting that at first. I thought I would be eating tacos. I'm embarrassed to say that. So forgive me, everyone. Even after all of my travels, I was surprised that the food was so different than Mexico. And also the vocabulary, the way people spoke. It was a big eye opener that my Mexican slang from Monterrey up north really didn't fly in Lima, Peru. No one understood me. So it was, it was a really eye-opening experience as I began to travel more and more in South America and discover that each country in South America was very unique and very different than the other. Although they had some similarities, for the most part, they had very different backgrounds, people, history, food, music. It was quite surprising.
I think that's definitely something that a lot of US students underestimate. I know that I did. I think because the region is known to widely speak Spanish, we assume that it's pretty homogenous throughout and nothing could be further from the truth. And that even within each individual country, there is so much variation, just, the different parts of the country, the different cultures that make up the country as a whole. So that being said, what are some of the other common misperceptions or loaded assumptions that you see students that come into Peru and how those slowly get wiped away during their study abroad program?
Well, they a lot of times feel like I did, before I got there, because in the US, most of us don't have a lot of exposure to South America, geography, history, things like that. And so when we first arrive, it's you're just trying to go with the flow. You're expecting maybe to see Machu Picchu from the plane. You just don't realize how large the country is, that it has this massive 3 geographical regions, that it's so, diverse and has all these microclimates. And just to think that it's on the other side of the hemisphere, it's like, I came in summer and I brought my sandals and my, my summer hats. Why is it so cold here? And it's like, well, we're in the southern hemisphere where it's winter, so I think that can be surprising for students in the beginning as well. So then they see the coastline and they're blown away.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you don't really imagine beaches necessarily when you're thinking of Peru. I think the stereotypical images are the llamas and Machu Picchu and all of that.
Right.
That being said, what are some of your favorite things to share with students to really, drive home the cultural diversity and the richness that Peru has to offer outside of just, Machu Picchu and the llamas?
Right. Well, we do a lot of different activities together. Of course, we're going to do, the archaeological sites and the museums, but I also want our students to have a more experience local life. Like we go to a skate park. We'll go to a surf lesson. I always try to incorporate food whenever we go to any type of activity, so they can try all of the variety of foods that come from many different types of backgrounds. We have a lot of Japanese and Chinese cuisine here that's fusion, that's mixed with Peruvian ingredients, and as well as African food, the criollo, the Spanish food, the mix. It's a huge opportunity for the students to see how rich the city is, Lima, with all these different types of foods. And there's an international food festival called Mistura that we always want to make sure the students are at and participate and try different foods. So that's important. And then, inviting them to maybe a Peruvian coffee or an ice cream or both. When we go to, the arts district, the Bohemian district of Barranco, that has a lot of very interesting history and culture and live music, or walking to the coast in Miraflores and overlooking the boardwalk, the Malecón, seeing all of the beautiful artwork by local artists. So of course, historic downtown is going to be on my checklist to show students. And if there's a great play at the National Theater, or at the National Ballet, or something that I think students might be interested in seeing in Lima, since we've got major concerts, we've got everything. I try to make sure they're always aware of those opportunities as well. Even sports, go see the national soccer team playing in Lima against another country. That's exciting.
Yeah, I think too, like, again, as a US student that was visiting Peru for the first time, I didn't fully understand just like the urban spaces really are so rich and vibrant, and that just, it didn't come across in the, the stereotypical marketing materials that I was seeing, like the posters hung up. There really is just a richness in the city centers that aren't getting enough credit, in my opinion. And so just wanted to lift those up for any students that are considering study abroad, and maybe Latin America is low on the list, maybe question why. And if your main motivator is academics, the perception that you only go abroad to South America for Spanish or service learning is not true at all. So we did want to highlight a couple of our programs on this slide here. Our program in Chile with La Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez offers an extensive course catalog for business and STEM students, both for semester and summer programs. So I know that a lot of students want to go abroad in the summer, and this program is a great way for even STEM students to still make progress towards their degree. Our host university there has a Triple Crown Award, which is a very rare quality with our host universities, or just universities around the world, which just means that they have 3 different accreditations that really set it apart. And some of these accreditations are required by the universities here in the States. So if your home university requires the AACSB or the EQUIS accreditation, just know that this is a great option to consider for both our business and engineering students. On the next slide, again, another really strong offering for business and STEM. This one's in Colombia, Universidad del Norte. I love bringing this program up for students in particular that are looking for research opportunities over the summer. They do offer a research course where you submit a research project proposal, and a faculty member will be your mentor throughout that course. And then all that work gets brought home. So I know a lot of honors students, or just students that are trying to get into the research in their field. This is a great program for that as well. And then the very last slide, we're bringing it back to Lima. So this is a really unique offering that I know a lot of our health science and pre-med students really like to take advantage of. It gives the unique opportunity to work on your medical Spanish while also doing field work. So Michelle, I don't know, like you've probably seen a couple of cohorts for this program come through by now. Are there any parts of this program in particular that you'd like to highlight, or any takeaways just from the students that you've seen come through so far?
Oh, definitely. We've been working at the UPCH for about 5 years through this program. It's a program that we designed together. It was field schools that they were offering, but these courses are very unique. It takes students out of the classroom and into the communities where they're working and observing and shadowing doctors that are from the UPCH university, that are working in clinics and hospitals and other types of healthcare facilities in low-income areas outside of Lima. And so students have this real life experience. And the medical Spanish class that they're taking that complements either the global and public health course or the community medicine course gives them that confidence, that vocab, some practice conversation, so they can go in and look at the public health campaigns, participate, talk to people, and get that real world experience. In fact, I reached out to my last group of students recently, and one of them got back to me that she's working on her MCAT application as we speak. And she just wanted to let me know that this course, the Global and Public Health course, was one of her favorite aspects was how real life the courses were. She said, we were in the classroom learning awesome information about statistics. However, throughout the entire program, we were connecting that information with real world examples. What was going on in Peru, and experience from our professors. And she really loved that because it really inspired her in ways that like a regular hard science class maybe wouldn't have. And she also really loved how hands-on the medical Spanish class was. She said that the class and the professors pushed the group to actually speak, try, fail, and continue growing as Spanish speakers. And when she gave me this feedback, it really warmed my heart. I think my favorite part of working with ISA students is talking to them a couple years after the program's over and seeing how much they really have reflected on their experience here and how it's changed them and pushed them in directions that maybe they weren't going to go originally. So it's really rewarding for me as their RD here on the ground.
All right, can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Hi, Michelle. So good to see
Hi,
you.
Candace.
All right, I've really enjoyed this session, like many of the others that we've had today. And there's a question in the chat that I want to lift up to you about excursions and service learning. So I think the student wants to know, will service learning students get an opportunity to engage in many of the things that study abroad students do?
Is this one for me?
Yes.
Yes. Our service learning students who come to Peru have the opportunity to go on the excursions as well. We have combo programs where the student could do a normal summer program for the duration 4 or 5 week program, and then add another 4 weeks of service learning to that program. Or we have standalone programs. So the service learning students can come for a 4-week program or an 8-week program and do solely service learning. However, when we organize our excursions, whether they're included or optional for our summer students, we always offer them to our service learning students as well and encourage them to go because they're a lot of fun. You know, especially here in Peru, that's when we get a chance to go to the Amazon jungle or over to Machu Picchu and Cusco in the Sacred Valley. And that's when we have an opportunity to explore the country together as a group. And as I've been living here 15 years, so I've gotten to know my way around. And I feel like I've perfected the excursions to where the students really get the most out of each one.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much. We really wanted to highlight not only the programs that maybe don't get as much screen time as far as like promoting to students, really highlighting that there are opportunities beyond just Spanish language and liberal arts classes, even for our business and STEM students. And then coming back to this idea of the single narrative, on this slide, we have a link to a compilation of recommendations for movies, TV shows, podcasts, books, etc., that our Latinx Employees Resource Group put together. So to expand the story that you are consuming about South America and Central America, feel free to jump over to that link and see some of the recommendations that our team has put together. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in, and thank you for Michelle for sharing a little bit about what you do for the team in Lima. We hope to have students on the ground again very soon. So until then, best wishes.
Bye everyone. Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
All right. So now let's go ahead and do a quick reset. This is our last opportunity. If you are interested in winning that $1,000 travel voucher, make sure that you are registered for the event, that you've let us know that you are here in the room by stating your name, major, and university, and then answering one of our trivia questions by submitting your answer on ISA Abroad, at the Instagram page for ISA Abroad. All right, so make sure that you go ahead and check us out on Instagram and get ready for the next question. All right, so name that country. Where is this? Where is this cityscape? I don't know where I think this is actually. Where is that? Go ahead and take a look. Go ahead and hop over to our Instagram drop your answer, and then we're going to go ahead and switch over to a quick video from our 2020 Study Abroad video winner. I always love seeing that video. Just gives me a little bit of FOMO. All right, so just one of our last plugs for those of you who are still here in the chat. We are still running our promotion for Valentine's Day Do-Over, where you get an opportunity to apply through the end of the day for free. You get an opportunity to skip over that $95 application fee. So hop over to our website and just get started. If you need help throughout the way, someone's there. All right, and again, it is Black History Month. So with that, we are lifting up some of our alumni who have had an opportunity to make their own history through study abroad with ISA. This right here is our student, Linda Santos. She went to Santiago in 2016, and she said, "I've learned how to see past societal standards of beauty and examine the beauty inside. I've also learned to appreciate all that I have, all of my senses, my family, and my ability to do simple everyday tasks. I'm forever grateful." So shout out to her. All right. One more plug for our global remote internships, our career semester and remote learning programs. For those of you who are interested in going global from home, virtual options are definitely an excellent option for those of you who may be not able to leave campus, or maybe you're going to graduate soon, but you still want to have the opportunity to connect with the global community and to expand your professional network. Don't forget about the internships, okay? And next up, we've heard a lot of great stories. I've been so excited by the way in which our global ambassadors, as my colleagues, and through the podcast, people have really shown up and shared out about who ISA is. So we're going to switch gears and kind of give you all some fun campfire travel stories. Give you one last chance to enter to win, and then we're going to close this thing out. All right? So let's take a look at some campfire stories from ISA.
This one time abroad, I was on a weekend excursion to Machu Picchu in Peru, hence my alpacas back there. And we were going on a hike from Aguas Calientes, which is the city at the base of Machu Picchu, to a waterfall that was about an hour hikes away. And we just hiked on the Incan Trail for about an hour. It was a pretty simple hike. We passed a train on the way there, like a train station. Keep that in mind because it'll be relevant later in this story. And we got to the waterfalls. It was absolutely amazing. And then we were hiking back. And when we hiked back, the train that was at the station was no longer at the station. And so I guess our point of reference was just a little off, and we missed the turn that we were supposed to make to go back to Aguascalientes. And so we kept hiking for about another hour and finally got to a tunnel. And we were like, we did not come through a tunnel for a train to get here. And then we realized that we had gone way, way, way too far. And so we had to backtrack. And so our simple hour hike became a 3-hour hike when all was said and done. I have never been so happy to get to our hotel. We did not even pack snacks because we thought it was just gonna be an hour. But ultimately, the waterfall was worth it. Machu Picchu was worth it, and you should definitely go abroad.
Hello, this is the camper van that we drove in New Zealand a number of years ago. And it's a really great little camper van, and it was just a beautiful country. But when you're driving from Queenstown to Milford Sound on really, really back mountainous roads and your windshield blows out, well, guess what? We ended up having to punch it out. We flagged somebody down on the side of the highway, and they said, just drive another hour or so without the windshield. Hope no one spits a rock into you, and you'll be able to get it fixed. Well, it worked out great. We ended up with an extra day and a half because it was a weekend in a little town outside of Teanu. We would never have really stopped there for that long, but it all worked out. We got to Milford Sound, and it was fabulous. So that's our adventure in New Zealand, and it was really great. And there you go. Travel is always the unexpected, and it's always wonderful. Have fun. Bye.
This one time abroad, I was studying in Germany, and I was staying with a host family. I really wanted to work on my German language skills, and it was a great way for me to, get to know some locals, get to know the culture, some of the local lingo. I was studying in Bavaria in Germany, so it was a little different than like standard German. And I thought I knew a lot of German, but I had only had about 2 semesters at the time. So I remember making a lot of mistakes in German, and the one I really remember, like my biggest fail was one night my host family in the first week or so of the program sat me down and was like, giving me prompts to practice and whatnot, and saying like, what's different between, here in Germany and in Kentucky where you're from. And I remember saying, it's, it gets just as hot, in the summer and cold in the winter, all these weather words that I had vocab for. But I ended up telling them, or trying to tell them, it gets more humid in the summer. And I will never forget this for as long as I live, but I told them, das Wetter ist schwüler in Kentucky als hier in Deutschland. And that, I learned that I wasn't very good at the umlaut sound, the oo. So I literally told them that the weather in Kentucky is gayer than in Germany. And I just remember my host family giving me this like blank stare, like trying not to laugh, before they told me, what my mistake was and how to make it better. And I mean, it was also funny because it was the same night that I came out to them, like being gay and studying abroad and whatnot. So I will never forget that particular vocab mistake. Can I get it right?
This one time abroad, I was on a night train from Chiang Mai, Thailand to Bangkok, Thailand. When I got into the train station, I realized that I had made a mistake. I did not write down my hotel information anywhere. The only place where my hotel information existed was in my email, which would have been great, but I didn't have access to the internet. And so I only knew the name of the brand of hotel that I was going to. So I went up to a taxi and asked if they would be able to help me out, if they'd be able to get me there. And they said, yeah, we'll work with you and figure it out. and they asked for what I felt at the time to be way too much money. So I followed the advice of my guidebook, went out on the street, and started trying to hail tuk-tuks, which are motorcycle taxis. And 6 successive tuk-tuks turned me down. I thought, this is pointless. I see the skyscrapers off in the distance. I'll just walk. So I started walking towards the skyscrapers. I walked for nearly an hour. Very lost at this point. I'm very, very lost. And thankfully, an impeccably dressed Thai man walks up and in perfect English says, "You look lost. Can I help you?" And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, finally someone is going to save me from myself and my own idiocy. And so he said, "Here, go ahead, use my cell phone. We'll figure out which hotel you're in." Got that all straightened out. He said, if you want, I can just give you a ride. I was thinking, man, this is even better. He probably owns a cab company or something, and so I'll just take a ride from him. So we start walking down the street. I figure his cab's maybe a block away. We walk for multiple blocks. He buys a drink off of the street, one for him, one for me. I drink it. It's delicious. I assume it's safe because he bought one for himself too, but he never touches his. And so then I'm a little bit nervous. We cross the street. He says, "Okay, I just need to grab my brother-in-law's car from the car park." And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? I need to get there though. So I'll go ahead and ride with him. So I get into his car and we start driving. He starts telling me about crimes that had happened in the city. And I'm thinking, I don't want to hear this. I just want to be at my hotel. Then he pulls off in an alleyway and says, "Wait here." Goes into the market, grabs something out of a cooler, comes back, hands it to me and says, "Eat this." And I'm thinking, at this point, I'm terrified. And I'm thinking, no, I'm definitely not eating this. But he was still doing me a favor as far as I knew. So I was polite and I said, "No, thank you. I'm really full. I'm ready to go to the hotel now." And he was a little bit insistent, but I continued to say no. And he did eventually just drop me off at my hotel. Needless to say, I threw the food away just in case. And the moral of the story is that there's a reason why Thailand is called the land of smiles, because it turns out he was just actually trying to help me. But also, next time, just take the expensive taxi cab. Like, save yourself the trouble. There's no reason to make it that complicated.
So one time I was visiting Paris for a couple days, and whenever I travel and I'm not familiar with the area, I don't like walking around with, my head in the phone, trying to see, look at Google Maps, trying to see, how do I get to my destination? So what I usually do is I'll stop, pull over, so to speak, and take a quick look at my phone, then walk, a couple more minutes, and then take another stop. So I was in Paris and I did just that. I took my stop, but I just basically walked into a little tiny shop. I think there was the shop owner there and one other person, and this was a cultural blunder. So I, when I went in, I was looking on my phone and they greeted me and I didn't say anything back. And I was sitting there standing there for a minute or so. And then the lady was like, "Is everything okay? You didn't greet me." And that's when I realized, man, I made a cultural mistake. So don't be afraid to try something new, but definitely learn about the culture where you're going to avoid the mistakes that I did. And it's all a learning and growing experience. So I'm excited for you guys to go abroad soon.
So this one time abroad, I was in Costa Rica and a group of my friends and I decided, hey, we're in Costa Rica, we're feeling adventurous. Let's go ahead and sign up to go ziplining. Okay. I'm not a super thrill seeker, but ziplining sounds good to me. So we sign up for ziplining, we go, it's an amazing tour and we're, the nature is beautiful and we see animals and it's so fun and so cool. But my friends were ahead of me on the zip line. And so we go through this course. And at one point, I guess I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't listening. And my friends all took a right turn and I happened to take a left turn. What I didn't realize was that the tour guide said, "All right, if you're turning left, that means that you are going to go bungee jumping. That means you're good to bungee jump." not a big thrill seeker again, so I definitely don't want to bungee jump. So literally I get up to the top of this this hill, and then somebody's wrapping my ankles up with the bungee jump, and I'm like, wait, what's happening? I'm not doing this. And he was like, you're here, you're going. And yeah, 1, 2, 3, and he pushed me right off, and I bungee jumped, and it was the scariest moment of my life. I screamed so loud. Everyone laughed at me. I was just like screaming the whole way down. But it ended up being really fun, and I'm glad that I did it. I probably wouldn't do it again, but at least I can say that I've bungee jumped. So that is my story about my accidental bungee jumping experience in Costa Rica.
This one time abroad, when I was studying in Granada, Spain for a year, I was going there strictly just to improve my Spanish and to just, have some fun in a new country for a year. But I really wanted to improve my Spanish, and it was about after the first semester I was really starting to think that I was getting good. And I think the peak of my Spanish level was when I was just waiting for some friends at this plaza, and this Spanish family came up to me and asked me a question for directions, actually in Spanish, and I was able to answer them in Spanish, and that was the conversation. I couldn't have been happier about that interaction. And then it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, my host family that I was staying with, they invited me out to their farm, because they kind of had an apartment in the city and then a farm maybe like an hour outside of the city, and they invited me to come stay there for the weekend. So I was helping them do some chores because they had some animals, and then their uncle, who's their neighbor, he comes over and starts talking to me, and I swear he was probably talking for 4 or 5 minutes straight, and I did not understand one word that man said. And after we were finished, my host sister comes up to me and she's talking to me in Spanish, and she's like, "Did you understand anything that he just said?" And I was like, "Ni una palabra," like not one word. It went all over my head. And she's like, "Yeah, that's okay. Like he's kind of has this more rural accent that's a lot tougher to understand, especially for people learning Spanish." And I was like, okay, like I thought maybe he was speaking a completely different language, but I think it's a good lesson, especially when you're learning a language, that you're going to have your ups and you got to, enjoy those and savor them, but you're going to have your downs, and that's part of it. And I think you just approach it with a fun attitude, because there's always room to improve.
So welcome to my campfire story. I just want to tell you all a little story from my time abroad. And the topic is when I felt like a local. So when I first arrived on my ISA program in Barcelona, I was able to, fit in with the way I look. I look somewhat Spanish, I guess. And I would walk into stores as I was perusing the different streets and shops, and I would walk in, and the people who owned the shop would always be, or working at the shop would always be like, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" And I would look right at them, kind of like a deer in the headlights, and say, "I don't know, no hablo español," and that was about it. I couldn't converse with them, but it did kind of make me feel a little bit like a local. And after the 5 months I was able to spend in Barcelona, I had a really good base knowledge of the language, was able to get around. But a few years later, after moving back, I had learned the language really well and made my way back to Barcelona, went to the same shops, and was able to now converse with them in Spanish. So it was just an incredible experience. It led me to, acquiring and learning a new language, ultimately moving back to Spain for a few years, and then coming back to work with ISA. So I think study abroad is an incredible experience. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and it really, truly is for everyone, and I hope you're able to make it work. Thanks so much.
All right. I hope you all enjoyed those campfire stories. I definitely laughed a few times listening to some of those experiences. Um, so, this is your last chance to make sure that you have entered into the raffle. Go ahead and Make sure that you introduce yourself if you are just now joining us at the tail end of the event. Thank you all so much for everyone who's already here, who's already introduced yourself. All right. And make sure that you have registered. We're here to help. All right. As we end this off, I just want to go ahead and show our map one more time. Again, I am Candace Ricks, one of the regional directors that manages the relationships in the Northeast. And on this map, you can see the rest of my colleagues highlighted in different variations of blue and green, and the bit.ly, which will lead you to how you can get in contact with each of us if you have questions about navigating this process. If you can't tell, the whole entire theme is that we're here for you. And we have a lot of expertise pulled together. So don't be afraid to ask questions. What's next? Let's get started. Connect with us. You can find us on Instagram, where you've been answering those trivia questions. You can go to our website and poke around and sort of take your time. And if you have a burning question, you can always call us. All right, we're here for you, and I hope that you all have enjoyed the conversation that we've had today. Let's make study abroad happen. Thanks so much. Make sure that you all also register and save the date for our next session, which will be held on March 10th. More details will be coming out for that. And remember, it'll be another opportunity for you to win a $1,000 travel voucher for your study abroad trip. All right. Thanks so much, everyone.